call to order the joint meeting, North Smithfield Town Council, Halliwell Review Committee, and Multi-Generational Committee, September 7th, 2023. Madam Clerk, can you start us in a prayer and the pledge, please?
Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. May we discern your will to unite in fruitful outcome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard?
Here.
Ms. Hamilton?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Here.
Mr. Ogier?
Here.
Ms. Alves?
Here.
All right. Calling to order the Halliwell Review Committee with roll call. Mr. Simpkins? Here. Mr. Nigerian? Here. Ms. Chartier? Here. Mr. Savini? Here. And the chair is here. Did I miss anybody? Oh, sorry. Mr. Mao? He's here. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Oh, you?
Call the meeting of the Multi-Generational Committee together. Here, open it up. Roll call, please. Mr. Carding? Here. Mrs. Silva? Here. Mrs. Wallace? Here. Mrs. Tebow? Here. Mrs. Narrow? Here. And, well, I don't. And Mrs. Alves? And Kim?
Here. Okay. All right. Next one is open forum pursuant to 42-46-6. Anyone that like to speak, if they want to sign up prior to speaking?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. You want to sign up first? There's someone else ahead of you.
I signed up. I don't think it'll be this one. I'm going to be real brief, so.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Patricia McGovern,
Yes.
would you just state your name and your address, please?
Patricia McGovern, 11 Roselawn Avenue. Patricia McGovern, 11 Roselawn Avenue.
Thank you.
My husband and I saw in the Valley Breeze that you're trying to decide where you should put that multi-generation center. And so I have to tell you, my son is much younger. And he told me, no offense, Ma, but the exit and entrance at Pacheco Park, he feels is not a good spot for all us old people. And he said Halliwell might be something to consider because there's a light, a wide road. And so once he was done insulting me, I had to admit he had a very good point. So it's something I think that should be considered. And then I was concerned about how the multi-generational center would be used because I really feel there should be a dedicated space for seniors. And I don't know if that's in the plans. I mean, I assume they'd have their own section, and you know, I think there should be, because I feel that, like, you know, it's the town should take care of its seniors. And I think we often seem so kid-focused. And they really do have a lot of activities. They have, you know, there's soccer, little league basketball programs, tennis clubs. The schools have clubs, sports. And the library does programs for everyone, from little kids to teenagers. So while I'm talking about the activities for kids, my husband and I have a lot of concerns about the plans for Halliwell. And we sent a letter to every person on the Halliwell committee, and I'm not going to, you know, have it with me today, but a lot of the concerns are the fact about, like, the quality of our life, the peace and quiet. We bought a house on a dead-end street with a little rural school that had limited days, limited hours, you know, recess, yes, but that was in the far distant part of the grounds. And I look at the plans, and I got to tell you, right now, literally, well, part of it is there's like the land goes up from Halliwell in a kind of almost a bowl shape. It creates a natural amphitheater. If you were in our house right now, you could dance to the music from Lindy's Tavern. So if anybody would like to come, they're more than welcome. But I mean, think about kids screaming in a splash pad, you know, games going on, especially if there's going to be any kind of speaker system. The lights. My son gets up at 5:30 in the morning. I don't want lights on there at all hours of the night and day, and we're not the only ones. The original meetings that we went to, there were a good number of people that were from the neighborhood, and every one of them came up with the same objections. Things like a senior center should be there, a library if you were inclined to, even possibly the police station. They talked about walking paths through the wetlands, and the community garden is a wonderful thing. So those types of activities are really the only appropriate activities. And one of the things we said was that, you know, I actually even sent a letter, by the way, showing how close our property is to the Halliwell grounds, right where all these things would be. And I'm kind of concerned. I mean, one of the things I've heard said is that this could be a great recreation area for all of northern Rhode Island. Well, why are our taxes, and I assume at least some of our taxes are going to go into this, even if we get grants, why are they being used for all of northern Rhode Island? Are you going to charge out-of-towners, I would hope, to use the facilities, if that even comes to pass? And I think there's a mindset. We have a police station that's unfit for 2023 policing, but yet we have the same artificial turf as the pros. And I mean, really, where are your priorities? And then also, you know, businesses will try to come into town, and there's an immediate objection from a lot of people. You're not in keeping with our rural character. Well, when did artificial turf, splash pads, and lighted basketball courts become rural? I mean, let's face it, where do you see those? You see those in cities, not in rural areas. And I think the mindset seems to be kind of, look at us. We look good. We've got a great center. We've got a great artificial turf. But we need to think about the wise use of land. And just because Halliwell is vacant doesn't mean we have to jump on it and do something with it right now. And I feel like, no offense to anybody on the Halliwell committee, I know you work hard. I know that. But I feel like you just can't wait to get in there and do this, whether it's for the good of the area or not. So thank you.
Thank you. Linda Tebow?
Basically, I just wanted to thank the council for taking time out of their busy schedule to be here for this meeting tonight. Thank Jeff Porter for arranging it all. And I just wanted to start before we begin all the other things on the agenda that, you know, I'm the senior advocate in town, and people know me, and I'm around town and everything. So I get phone calls all the time. I remind them I don't have a vote. But what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that they're very concerned about that there might be an expiration date on the grant, as well as an expiration on themselves, and myself included. So, you know, it's true, huh? They're saying yes. No, so the concern is that this grant process, by the time it comes to fruition, maybe many of us sitting here tonight will have met our expiration date. So I think we need to get going. Many of us, some of us, I should say, it's true. Some of us have been involved with this before this council was ever seated. March 24th, 2021 is when some of us began this. So that's all I have to say. Let's get going. Thank you.
Next agenda item, new business, discussion by council vote or other action on introduction and update from BH+A.
Thank you, Council President. This evening, the Halliwell Review Committee is here with our consultants, BH+A, who we have awarded the contract to create the master plan for the Halliwell property. They have been working countless hours, reviewing many documents, and listening to many meetings that we've had since their start in this past June. What I would like to get from tonight is just a basic introduction to the firm, understand where they're coming from, what their expertise is, who they are, and also where we are in the master planning process. Based off of everything that Joel and Rachel and Kyle have heard to date, has been reflected in their preliminary concepts that they are going to be presenting tonight. So by no means is this a final building plan, site plan. We're certainly looking to hear feedback and comments, questions, and the like. But I do want to really underscore the fact that this is conceptual. This is not construction documents that we're going to be going out to bid with. Right now, we don't have any pricing for it yet because we're still crafting this master plan to fit the town's needs and what we want to move forward with. So with that, I'm going to introduce Joel Bargman, principal at BH+A. And Joel, the mic is yours.
Can I get the next slide? So thank you. My name is Joel Bargman. I'm an architect. I'm here with Kyle Zick, who's our landscape architect, who is looking at the Halliwell site in its entirety. Rachel Young, who's an architect with our firm, and she's looking at the building components. And I'll walk you through those things. Well, Jeff's very accurate. We've heard a lot of things, and we basically tried to incorporate all the things that we've heard into a plan, which then will get whittled down and narrowed down as the process goes forward. So it's not intended to be, this is a proposal, it's intended to be, these are how all these programs could fit on the site. So if you want to think about the site over the next 50 years, here's a place that if you ever want to put a field in, makes the most sense to reserve this area for a field. Or if you want to do a splash pad, which was another issue that came up, here's an area that could happen. These aren't ideas that this would all go in at once. It's really a master plan to identify spots, phase things in as the town may or may not want to do, and to do it over quite a lengthy period of time. If I could have the next slide. So Jeff asked me to just do a little introduction. We specialize in multi-generational community centers, meaning seniors, kids, and then the adults. And Rachel will explain how that works in this particular plan. Next. We've done work in Rhode Island. This is a master plan, very similar to what we're doing in Halliwell for Snake Den Park. We were working for DCR. Very conceptual. What are all the ideas that could go in to that park? This is another small town in Sandwich on Cape Cod that's a center for active living, which is a multi-generational senior center, gym, adults, recreation, brings all these different groups into one building. And then around that, this is a site very similar to Halliwell. There's pickleball, there's basketball, there's tennis, they happen to have a skateboard park. Then on the right, you have open fields, trails. So it's a very similar master plan that Kyle and our firm did together. This is another small town in Situate on Northern Cape. Again, of similar, they have a site, it's more of the central green in town. We looked at that entire site. Recreation, a center for adult activities, senior center, fields, again, many of the things that we're talking about for Halliwell. So I'm sort of showing these not only for our background, but also for what other communities are doing. They're using their senior community that's now quite large and quite active as a way to generate some opportunities for other age groups as well. And Rachel will show you how that's a natural fit with a senior adult population and a youth population. And last, the woman before us mentioned trails, and I just point this out. Kyle's expertise is in walking trails. There's a 6-mile long trail that goes through 3 communities from the Old North Bridge to Lexington Center, where the shot that was heard around the world happen. But just in terms of looking at Halliwell and walking trails, and I thought a community cross-country trail might be fun. We have that expertise on the team. Next. Okay, so we had 9 steps in our program. Right now we're in the middle of this. We've heard from all the different groups that have come out, and we haven't necessarily filtered out what we've heard. We've tried to take in everybody's ideas. So we haven't quite determined the priorities yet. Because long term, your priorities may change. So the thought was, don't edit them down, fit them onto the site as best we can so you have a roadmap for your future growth. So right now we're doing scoping. How does this all fit on the site? Kyle will show you how we've done some alternatives. We haven't even priced this yet because it's too early to put a price on it since we haven't heard back from council or any of the other groups that even what we're talking about is remote possibility. So we're at the concept phase. There's a phase that goes beyond this in terms of design, pricing, and then rolling it out to the community in a way that is modular. And with that, I'll pass it over to Kyle to just bring you up with the site master plan, and then Rachel and I will go through the building.
So I'm Kyle Zick, a landscape architect. I mean, you all are familiar with the site in its current state with all the school infrastructure there, which could change this fall. And we just want to remind you of that, but there's a lot of opportunity in that space there, so that's what we'll start to show. Next slide, please. So these 4 diagrams aren't meant for you to really dive into. I just wanted to give you a sense that we've been studying different ways that things can fit on the site. And the things, that list of program elements has been evolving a bit, but there's a building site for the multi-generational building we talked about, associated parking, some recreational fields, walking trails, and other elements that we'll talk about. Now the site isn't a blank slate. I mean, it has been previously developed, but there's a lot of the site that is heavily wooded. There's wetlands, there's streams, there's steep topography. So it's not like every inch of the place could be used even if we wanted to. Next slide. So this first option is option A, and I guess I'll reiterate what Jeff and Joel have already said, that this is a way that things can fit on the site, but it is a longer term vision. We're not expecting that you would do everything all at once, or that you might even do all of it. You might say, all right, this is a way that the site could be programmed. We can see how a lot of things can fit, but we choose to do only this much to start. So let me explain what all this is. So Victory Highway is on the top of the screen. And the Halliwell School, I'm going to point for a second. The school buildings are all in this area. That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. And the existing driveway for the school starts at Victory Highway at that light that was mentioned, and the white dashed line is pretty much where it exists now. So we're trying to reutilize the existing infrastructure as much as possible, propose program elements where the buildings and the parking and school infrastructure already exists, so that you don't have to try to go into the rest of the site, which is more natural and wooded. So the program elements that we're talking about, if you reutilize the existing driveway and come to this upper portion of the site, which was the school buildings, a new multi-generational building could be here, fairly prominent on the way down that driveway, and the most convenient. If you're only coming to that building, that's your destination. There's parking nearby to it. Now, beyond that, there are other elements. There could be a large field here. Now, it's labeled football. That could be multiple soccer fields. It could be lacrosse. Anything that needs a large rectangular field could fit here. And that's one of our goals, is to not do dramatic earthwork here. So there's a terrace here where the school buildings were. That's what fits in that area. We're not trying to cut down a lot of trees to expand that or put in a lot of fill to go to the lower part of the site. The red rectangle is a basketball court associated, or in between the building and the field. and the white dashed line is the pedestrian path that already comes from the neighborhood today. The white dashed line goes from the upper part of the site down to the lower level where the community garden is now. And the community garden would exist, although be relocated, same size, and there would be some parking spaces reserved there for handicap parking, but also just for use of the community garden. This lower part of the site, there's a playground there now, and there's a very large existing oak tree. We've heard one of our program elements is keep that large oak tree. So that's shown here with that circle. This shows that a softball field or a Little League field, same dimensions, could fit in that location. And there could be a picnic pavilion and maybe an amphitheater. And by amphitheater, it's really more of a grass landform that, you know, there could be something very informal that you're seeing a presentation, music, or something like that. Now this other white dashed line that goes throughout the site is that walking trail. Could be used for competitive cross-country running, but it's a way to access the rest of the site. These faint blue lines, hold please. Oh, that was it. Right there, thank you. So the faint ones, and there's associated wetland buffers, so that's why you're not seeing other program elements deeper into the site, and we have that labeled wetlands, but the white dashed line continues around, and we have over a mile, I think. So if it was a competition cross-country, they would do multiple laps, but it's just a walking trail opportunity to get throughout the site. It would be pretty great. And it doesn't require many crossings of the wetlands with boardwalks. I haven't mentioned, because I can't reach it, the softball field up there. You know, I think that would probably, that's a bit of a stretch because it's not on some of the more developed area. You'd have to clear trees and do some considerable earthwork. But if the desire was to have a couple softball fields, that's the way it could work. And you know, you could walk into that space there. And this is option A because there's two building options. You'll see the footprint will be slightly different, but generally it's in this location and it has two parking locations with it. Next slide.
Maybe that one slide. So I just want to talk about this building in general, and then Rachel will walk you through and talk about the multi-generational aspect. It looks like a big footprint, so it does show in here the ultimate size of the building, but what we worked with the committee was sort of collaborating on an idea that you may not want to do everything all at once, and you may not know right now what you want to do first. So we came up with this idea that I'll just walk through quickly next. The building could really be of three parts. You could have, for one, a community center that might focus on some of the more adult and senior activities. That could be a standalone building, or it could be connected. You could have two, next slide, what that building I showed you in the slide, both Situate, Sandwich, all of our things that have the active living center, add a gym, and gyms are very popular with seniors, by the way, these days. But that could be phase one, that could be phase one, however you see fit for the building. This idea is the field house would support those outdoor fields. That if you have softball, you want to have a concession, you want to have bathrooms so that parents can take their kids in and use the bathroom. So if you have an active field program, it's really nice to have bathrooms. It works out really nice to have bathrooms attached to the building and supporting the gym. So they're heated, they're clean, they're taken care of all year round. It's a much more cost-effective way to do it. And then to round off the generational aspect on the end, you could build on, you could just do the field house. You don't even need to do the gym. Or B, you can add on more spaces for kids after school and that. So there's a modular age-related progression that can happen. And let Rachel walk you through this in detail and show you some pictures of what these different spaces look like.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Young. I'm an architect. I've been working with BH+A for over 10 years now. And as Joel mentioned, working on community centers, multi-generational centers, senior centers, preschools, the gamut. So to walk you through our conceptual design for the center, assuming that it's all these different components at once, I'm just going to start with what we would call the front door, where it's noted as vest for vestibule and lobby. So we envision this as a very tall, lofty glass space, an area that really makes a statement as you walk inside. You know it's the center, it's centrally located, and it's a space where you can have spectators watching something in the gym, you can have people just hanging out and talking informally with friends. Maybe it's a place where someone waits for a program to get done. That's associated with the core that Joel was talking about before with the locker rooms, and so that would have a small reception office for checking in, and then largely the bathrooms and the storage for the gym. I'm going to move now to your left to look at that community center. So that has an entrance off of the lobby, and it has a second entrance off the front where you were pointing, where it says vestibule. So two entrances. The entrance that's within the building, you immediately walk into a second lobby space, a space we would call more like a living room, or describe more like a living room. So this is a space where you would have a fireplace, you would have soft seating like couches, you probably have books and beautiful built-ins, and a reception desk. So you come into that space, and it's almost like an antechamber to our large multi-purpose room, which is all the way over on there. Thank you. This is a multi-purpose room that can be subdivided into two spaces, one large, one small, with an operable partition. It is connected to the kitchen so that you can have meals on one side, or a large banquet. You can rent it out for events. And it's also designed with a stage so you can have presentations. And I think I noted the max capacity, if you were going to do a presentation, is about 180 chairs. That multi-purpose room is associated with an outdoor space, a patio, so you could see an opportunity to take meals outside in the fair weather. And that kitchen is also not too far from that living room space I was describing, so you could imagine that as an informal cafe space as well, where people could grab a grab-and-go sandwich, a snack, a muffin, and eat it out there with their friends. The other spaces on the ground floor in this community room is a game room, so that has what we're showing is 2 billiards, so you can have competitions. And then other like card game tables and informal seating. Maybe there's a TV in there for watching sports. And then all the way over to the right is the wing I will call for additional program rooms or classrooms. These are flexible spaces. They could be used for youth, for preschool classrooms. They could also just be used for general classrooms for all ages. They're set up with ensuite bathrooms. Again, that would be for preschool, but they could be used for older participants as well. And then there is a reception area designated for that space. So if you wanted an entrance that was off to the side and discreet, if this was going to be a preschool, for example, you have a way for the parents and the kids to go in where they're not going in through the general population. That space is connected to the gym, so you can take advantage of that. In fact, all the spaces are connected to the gym. And then I'll just go back to that lobby space in the center. You'll see that there's a stair going up to the side, and that will get you to the second floor. And if you can share that second slide. Thank you. So this is the second story of that space. You have the open to below space, that large glass, almost like an atrium lobby space I was talking about earlier. And then you have a walking track in the gym, so a second level for the gym. We find that these are very popular and used quite frequently. And there are two means of access to that walking track, the stair in the center from the lobby, and then a second stair that would be accessed off of the community center. So that stair that's just right over to the side, hiding it right there. Thank you. Then on this level, you have additional bathrooms and offices, mechanical space, and then the community room has a dance studio, a few program rooms, a smaller computer room, and a smaller conference room. And one strategy I just want to go back to with the multi-purpose room is that we could have built over the multi-purpose room, but by not building on top of it, that allows us to create a lovely tall space. You can imagine something that's vaulted, high ceilings, really like a celebratory community space. Next slide. This is a conceptual rendering of that community center, assuming all the different departments are built together. So you can see that glassy central lobby, that main entrance, and then you can see off to the side the secondary entrance for the community center. The lower massing over here would be the classroom spaces, and then the concession stand would be basically right there out in front. Next. Just to talk about how this center could be used throughout the day, it is envisioned that it would be used throughout the day. We have just some diagrams that would talk about that use. So in the upper corner, we have a typical morning. We envision that that would be a popular time for seniors to use for example, the walking track, or maybe they have a pickleball competition inside the gym. And then in the afternoon, it would transition to more of a younger population. Maybe it would be after-school activities or basketball, those kind of events. And then in the evening, it would be maybe reserved for high school, for that middle-aged population. And this is specific to like the gym, but you could see that for all of the program rooms as well. Okay. So this is the second option. Do you want to walk through the site plan, or you just want me to? Okay. Okay. So the second option we explored was not just having a gym space, but also having a pool space. So 2 large athletic spaces. This shows you the implication on the site. So you can see the pool is this, what that gray box is, that's the pool, and how it basically lengthens the building. You have 2 one-story masses. You have the gym and the pool. Not possible to do the It's a Wonderful Life scenario where you have them stacked on top of each other, so they take up more area. Next slide. So this, I'm just going to walk you quickly through this concept. We're still preserving that lobby, central space, large ceiling, double height, that gets you access to the gym and community center on the left, and then the classrooms and the pool on the right. The locker rooms are then focused at the back of the site, and then you have additional restrooms associated with the classroom space that's over this one little band, if you will, of bathrooms. And then you have bathrooms that are associated with the community center as well. Community center, again, can be accessed from two entry points, one off of the hallway and then another directly from the outside. And then it's the same program. So we didn't change anything about the size of the multi-purpose room or the game room or any of those other spaces. They're pretty much apples to apples with the 2 schemes. And then the big difference is the pool. So we're showing a regulation-sized pool that could be used for high school competitions, as well as perhaps a kiddie pool, a shallower pool, maybe one that could be used for aerobics. Really, we can talk more. There's all sorts of ideas for a pool. So this is really just showing you a general concept for it. Then the second story of this concept, again, similar. We're not building over the classroom space. That's 1 story. The pool, there's nothing below. You still have the walking track for the gym, and it's still associated with that community room. And again, we're trying to do apples to apples, so the second floor spaces at the community room are really comparable. They may not be the exact square footage, but pretty close to the original concept I showed you. So those are the 2 concepts. Do you want to go through the photos? All right, I'm going to hand it back to Joel. He's going to talk about some design concepts we'd like to incorporate.
Thank you. I'll just quickly, you saw 2-story buildings. Everybody thinks that community centers are 1 story, but every one of ours today is 2 stories. One is people like the density, they're smaller. People like the fact that a 2-story building has half the roof area and it's more energy efficient, and that's a big component in all of our new community centers, is to make them as efficient to operate as you possibly can. But this just shows Rachel's idea of coming in a front door and having the ability to see the whole building at once. Next. This is that sort of lounge idea. A lot of the centers have these the kitchens, but they have a snack option at the kitchen to let seniors, let adults, let kids come in and get a snack and really activate the space. So this building doesn't even have a lobby. This is the lobby, and they play cards there, so you don't need as big of a game room. It opens up to the outdoors, but just shows sort of the activities that communities are getting out of their spaces. Sort of like a Starbucks with a coffee shop, seating area, food on the left. Next. Very simple kitchens. It's designed to be operated by folks. You don't need a commercial chef. It's all residential type equipment that's obviously in a commercial environment. Next. This is, Rachel mentioned, one type of multi-purpose room, rather generic. So while you saw on the idea on the scheme was sort of the adult and the older section was on the left and the younger section was on the right. This room itself can be used by any age groups. It's really a generic multi-purpose room. This is also a generic multi-purpose room, but a little bit more designed. It has a ceiling like your room here, but it can be used for athletic events. So they don't really have a gym, they just have a big multi-purpose room, lots of storage, and they do their gross motor activities for the kids in the multi-purpose room. I didn't stage that. We just went to take a picture and someone was on the track level using the wheelchair. That's the point. The track is an indoor sidewalk for the community in the wintertime. It's handicapped accessible. The gym, as Rachel pointed out, has basketball, but it also has 3 pickleball courts. I'm sure you've heard all about pickleball, and we can't build enough pickleball courts, it appears. Next. And this is another aspect of the gym. They often have these doors. The building is super for your summer camp programs because it has bathrooms for the kids. When it rains, they can come in from the fields and have an area of refuge in the gym. So the Halliwell site, the idea of an inexpensive community gym really goes hand in hand with maybe bringing in your summer camp program to this site. Next. And then last, this is a bigger facility, but just when you do fields, if you do fields, they really want to be supported by bathrooms. If you have a real turf field, which one of the requests was to support the youth football program, you may want to have an area for the team to go in, get changed. So these are very inexpensive but simple field houses with a changing area, public bathrooms, concession stand, supporting the fields. Next. I think that might be the last point. Yeah. If we can just go back to the first slide, that would be good. All right, so I'll pass it back to Jeff.
So as you can see, BH+A have been very busy over the past couple months. Speaking from my own experience, they're right on track with schedule and how long this is anticipated to take. This evening, I did want to, again, introduce the firm, but also introduce what they've been doing and also hear your thoughts on these as well. That's one of the things that the Halliwell Committee has always been tasked with, is listening to the community. You're obviously part of the community and the elected officials of our community. So we want to continue to listen this evening and get some feedback, get some thoughts, get some further direction on how this master plan is evolving. So I would certainly open it up to the council to, if there's any questions or comments or thoughts that you've had during this presentation, to please feel free to share them.
I just wanted to know, in this scope of work, when you think there might be some costs associated, so that we can get a better handle on what to do first, what to do next, that type of thing. And I know right now we haven't decided really on any specific building or program, as it were. But, I mean, do we have any idea when that, we could get an idea of what a cost would be for, say, the multi-generational building?
So CJ, if you want to go to the slide that outlines the scope of work with the tasks. Basically, where we would be looking to have those initial cost estimates is right at step 3. So as Joel had said, we're kind of hovering around step 3 and 4. So after we determine these 3 scoping options, Joel has presented to us that, typically how he, and Joel, you might be better to put this more eloquently, is that they give us kind of 3 options, bare bones, middle of the road, and then top of the line. And Joel, if I misspoke, please feel free to correct me too.
No, it's not only that, but because there are so many components, we thought we would put prices on the different components. So if you did the field, that's how much the field would cost. And so the building itself would be the different levels of the building, but a field is a field, sort of, so you will component and price that. We didn't want to price it not having gotten any feedback, so the first step is to get some sense of if we're going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the difficult part about this for the Halliwell Review Committee is we're looking at our comprehensive plan. We have no community center listed in our comprehensive plan. We have no senior place for seniors. The scope for the library is very limited. So, you know, the comp plan has limited us slightly. So we've been been working towards creating this master plan that will also help inform the comp plan in creating a way for us to move forward as a town as a whole. So if we decide, you know, we get some pricing options from Joel and his team that, okay, we only want to spend X amount of money in the next 5-10 years. Okay, well then these are the phases that we can accomplish. And if, you know, we're looking to finish this up in the next 15 years, you know, we have that path forward now, because as a member of the planning board, I know next year we actually have to go through and revise our comp plan. So I know I'm going to be working with Mark and Bobby very closely on that to make sure that this project is outlined in the way that we discuss with council, with community members, and basically everybody in town to see how they want to see this move forward. You can't be all that quiet, though.
I'd like to share something with you.
You're not on.
And I'm having oral surgery, so I wasn't born with this lisp, trust me. There's a lady that got up, and she stressed just for seniors. When communities build multi-usage for the entire town, I think both can work together. I feel our children keep us young. We learn from one another. You seem very concerned when people living around the church, and they have the Sunday presentations, and people are running around. That wasn't always there. But people that lived around there embraced it. Pacheco was always Pacheco. I can remember when the other building was built. I think we can work together if the space is there. I mean, you don't have to have a kid running through the room all the time either. Peace is nice at times. But I think you can have the architect involved, giving both an area. And when we begin, the idea of one building, section one way or another, because I'd like to start with the building first, actually, so you have something to use. And I want to get it going. I don't know about you, but during my lifetime, I'd like to see this happen. I will tell you that my friend, when we were first elected, and I think Mr. Zielinski, you remember that too, when we brought up a senior center, and it was mentioned at that time, a multi-usage type for the entire community. And then there were a couple of people that got up at that meeting and said, well, people come to me and seniors really don't want a senior center. I don't know how many people said that, but we're using everybody else's. And I think you know that by the numbers for communities around us and the people that go there. But I feel we can make this work. And I feel if we can come to a good place where we can start. We keep having meetings and, well, I don't want this, I don't want that. Let's get our act. Let's get it going. If we would have done the, hopefully the way we're attacking this, to the police station, it would have been built 7 years ago, and we would have saved millions. But I'm not saying this insultingly. You know, sometimes they say, old Yanks are thrifty. Well, they are thrifty. But at the end, because it wasn't done when it was supposed to be done, we're paying up the wazoo because we did not do it. Let's be honest. We didn't fix our roads, kept the taxes down. Now we're doing it, and it is costing us. We didn't keep up buildings. Look at Bushy. We thought we could fix it. We're lucky that as we were getting it in shape, it didn't fall on you. Because the deeper you dug, it wasn't, number one, a well-constructed school. Number two, it was never kept up. And it was designed for a elementary, K through 4. God, and now we're at a point where it's going to cost us buku dollars, but it has to be. Now, let's not let this happen to a community center. And I like the feel of a community center. When children say that their grandparents are young, old, you got it made, because you understand them and they understand you. I hate to see borders between generations. So we're going to get the show on the road. I'd like to set time limits to make decisions and get it going. And maybe in between, we can get more grants, get writing, and the funds will be there.
Madam President? CJ, can you go to site plan option A? Yeah, that's it. So the question I have is, first of all, I think we got, honestly, and I'm going to be the Debbie Downer here, but I think we got a little off track. If you look at option, no, it's not option A I was looking at. It's the part where it shows the 3 facets, the 3 different, yeah, that one. No, is that it? Yeah, all right. So if you look to the left, that would be the phase 1, correct? That would be the...
We can phase it any way that we see fit. That's the beauty of this plan. That we don't have to, we can prioritize whichever section we want to before we get started.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask is I think we got a little off track. I really do. And I think the people that BH+A really know their stuff. Obviously, they put together a great presentation. They have a great resume. But I'm not sure it fits for what our community is looking for right now. I think we're looking for a multi-generational facility. And if you look at option A, the first quarter, or the first third, I'm sorry, that's what we should be focusing on right now, is a multi-generational facility. And if you look at the plan, I'm not seeing anything for shuffleboard, bocce, horseshoes, pickleball courts. Those are the things that we should be working on right now. Multi-generational facility with those types of things for activities for seniors and for other people that share the facility with it. The time that they're spending on the other 2/3 of this building, I think could have been spent more wisely on phase 1, the multi-generational facility, and we'd be a little further along right now. We got to get this thing moving. I got a phone call the other day from a gentleman, and one of the things he said, one of the seniors, one of the things he said to me, and it broke my heart, was before he hung up, he said, "Let me ask you a question." He said, "Am I going to see this before I die?" And that's a lousy thing to hear from somebody. And this has been going on and on. Let's focus on the multi-generational facility. We'll leave the footprint for down the road, not the next council, but the next generation. because that's not going to happen in the next 15 years, maybe 15, 20 years. But let's focus on the first third. Let's get the multi-generational facility going. Let's get the activities out there, the walking trails, the outdoor activities, and get moving on this. We have the money to do that part. We're wasting our time looking at all the other stuff.
So those programmatic elements that you just listed out, bocce courts, shuffleboard, we have not heard those until this evening, okay? We have done surveys. We based our reports off those surveys, and that has not been listed. We have meetings almost every other Thursday where we invite the public to come speak, and those have not been brought to our attention. I read emails that I receive from the public at our meetings to be put into the record of what people would like to see. Those have not been brought up. So, while respectfully, you might have heard that, that wasn't relayed to us. We need to know these things if you're hearing this from a multitude of people. So then that way we can tell BH+A, hey, you know, there are some residents that would like to see where this could fit in. And then we give them that information. They figure it out. They're like, okay, well, this is great. We can fit this in here. Or they tell us they're truthful with us, and they tell us the reality. Well, you know, if we have to put in bocce courts, well, then that means the basketball courts come out. Okay? So it's funny that you say that we need to get this moving, because, Mr. Beauregard, we fought to get this master plan started for the past year. We recommended to the previous council that we get started with a master plan back in August of 2022. We were denied that. So now all of a sudden we need to move forward, and we need to move forward quickly. I'm sorry, but I respect that you have had a change of heart and you understand the urgency of this, but this is where we are today. And this is how we need to move forward with the master plan, putting together a good master plan, because if we rush this, we're left with crap. And I hate to be blunt, I do not want to be left with crap. This is not what we're paying consultants to do. This is how we need to do what's appropriate for the town now and in the long run, because we need to appropriately plan for this property. This property is 40+ acres. It's a valuable piece of property. We need to look at this carefully, thoroughly, and understand the entirety of the property to put together a plan. I understand we have $4 million. That hasn't been allocated to us yet. That's further down in the discussion tonight. I would really, though, like to focus on what's been presented this evening. BH+A has spent their time here to hear feedback on what has been presented tonight. What I would really like to hear from the council is some feedback, some constructive feedback that we can give to them so that they can appropriately move forward, so then we can go into the next steps that are outlined in the presentation. We can't keep beating our fists here tonight saying we need to move faster, we need to move faster, we need to get this done. Respectfully to everybody in the room and the community as a whole, there's a process here. I know this process. I've explained it multiple times through at council meetings, at the Halliwell meetings, because I live it. I'm a registered architect. I've gone through this process multiple times for multiple communities. I know how this is run. So, respectfully, please allow me to do my job in running my committee, running the consultants, and doing what's right for this town. Because the last thing I want to do is have somebody yelling at me at an open forum saying that I didn't take the time to do something the right way. I know what the right way is, and we've had education on it. I can run you through Architecture Public Bid 101 again if the council would like to have that at their next meeting. I'll be happy to run you through the process, the RFQ process, how long things take appropriately. Be happy to do that, but there's a process that needs to be followed. With that said, I would like to redirect ourselves in this conversation because we are wildly off our agenda. And I want to bring it back to the presentation that's been shown at hand and get feedback, as I said from the onset of this presentation tonight.
Jeff, I just want to say one more thing. When we first talked about the master plan, you said, we will focus on the outdoor activity. That's what we're going to focus on. We're just going to show where the footprint of a building is going to go, so in the future, so that way that we don't build something where in the future we're going to have to knock it down and put up a building. This is a lot more than showing what, I'm just saying, it's a lot more than showing a footprint, what we just looked at for the last 15 minutes. You follow me? So we said, let's focus on the outdoor activity, and you said, well, let's just put the footprint on. We'll show you where the footprint's going to go. This isn't a footprint, Jeff.
Mr. Biergard, we could sit here all night and argue back and forth what a master plan is and isn't. I'm sorry if I didn't do my due diligence in explaining what a full master plan is. A master plan does include a building plan. A master plan includes a site plan, building plan, and everything that's involved with it. So my apologies if I did not explain that well enough at the onset when I have come to council previous times and explained that. There are multiple components to a master plan. A building plan is one of them. Because we can't figure out a footprint size if we don't know what's going in it.
So can I just ask a couple of questions? So in the site plan option A, can you go back to that, CJ? So you're saying the wetlands is just those little bit of light blue areas, so that's kind of surprising because I thought it was mentioned there was a lot more wetland in that property, but that's all that's coming out as wetland?
There is, and I'll let Kyle speak to this. There is more than just the blue that's in there. It's hard to see on the projection, and it might be better to see in your handout,
Yeah.
but there is a highlighted area of green, and Kyle, please correct me if I'm wrong, that zone is the wetlands. And I have a, Kyle, if you need a laser pointer, I got one for you if you need it.
That'd be great.
So CJ, you'll have to play, catch with Kyle.
So there are multiple wetlands. So I'll start up here in this corner. There's blue here.
Oh,
And you have to remember the way the wetlands are regulated. It's not just the wetland itself. There's a buffer zone to protect the wetland. So we have a wetland here, and there would be a buffer zone around it. That's why there's nothing else shown. There's another blue sliver right here. There's wetlands right here. There's wetlands here. Wetlands that go into here, and then through this part of the site. And then these other brown tan lines are contour lines, 5-foot grade change difference. So where you see the contour lines bunched up, that's a steep hill.
So, go ahead.
So one more question. So is there another, so that pedestrian walkway that kind of goes towards Green Street? So there's no way to have a second exit or entrance, correct?
No, there's just this one vehicular entrance here. We do have emergency access that was requested here.
So there's no other way to get
No.
in and, okay.
Yeah,
And-
that's one thing that we have discussed with Kyle is emergency access, because I know one of our members has talked to the fire department, and that is a big concern. I understand a while back, one of our planning board members had spoken with the owner at Lindy's for a possible easement to make sure that we could get in there. There could also be a conversation with the Village Haven as well to perhaps, as undesirable as it would be to cross further wetlands, there could be an option that we look at for that as well.
And that suggestion of a softball field, obviously that's just a suggestion, so it could be any type of outdoor activity, correct?
That's right.
And it's just getting to that area from the parking areas, correct?
That's correct.
And utilizing the total parcel, what you have projected here for programming is primarily what it could be used for. I mean, we don't see any additional building past the wetlands on the left-hand side of this particular option A.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
The buildings are in tan, so that's the
Yep.
multi-generational center. The concessions actually, there was a scheme where it's attached to the building. The picnic pavilion, that's just basically a
Small.
roof. But otherwise, yes, there's no other structures for the rest of the site, and there's, other than walking paths, nothing here.
Okay, and the reason for that, and I'm just thinking, you know, originally when this piece of property was starting to be looked at, if we were to use it, and don't get everybody get mad, I'm just saying, if we were to put a new school, if we were to put, you know, some type of retail in there, this is going back before we had this way early in the discussion. Is that prohibited on the rest of this parcel because of the wetlands?
Well, it's not prohibited, just doesn't, it would be a little bit of conjecture to say if it could be approved, because you, depending on the development, what you just described.
Right,
You know,
right.
if you were to build a school that went beyond where the development is now, you would need some ridges, and you would probably have to replicate some of the wetlands.
Okay.
And retail would be difficult from the amount of parking you would need.
Right. Okay, well, I'd just like to, you know, put that out there, because if we're utilizing this property to its fullest potential, I think that's what we should be doing, you know, but, may I ask another question? So, given that this is conceptual right now, if we were to look at just asking you to focus on what you have listed as a community center, but, you know, I'm sure this is a little bit premature because the next, you know, agenda item is specific to the grant that we got for a multi-generational center, right? Not a senior center, not a community center. It is a multi-generational. So if we were to ask you to give us a pricing for a building, right? Right now, I guess this would be it, right? This community center. Would that be something that we could ask you to do more quickly than waiting to see what other options we might want to investigate, you know, as time goes on, so that we're not delaying further any of this potential building?
That we could, yes.
You could? Okay.
Can I ask a question? So out of all the community, I have a couple questions, if it's okay, Madam President. So out of all the communities that you guys have worked with, how often do those communities elect to phase in their building, build in their sections? So like, we're looking at this community center, but then I believe on the next slide, it says site redevelopment community use with the gym. Like, what is the percentage you would have to say? Do most elect to build in segments? And I'm only asking because, you know, we've seen changeovers in council, plans get delayed, and then it's 10, 20 years later, and here we are, we're talking about trying to do something else, and who knows if that plan's even viable. So that's why I'm coming from that perspective.
I'd say that today, communities are looking to expand on that multi-generational by adding the gym, because there's such a need for gym space in most communities. It's hard to use the schools, and the gym is relatively inexpensive compared to some of the other spaces, and it provides such opportunities. Seniors, pickleball, basketball for youth, and so it's just more and more prevalent to have those two components. But it's not universal. I'd say it's sort of the multi-purpose rooms, and this core is, if you did something separately, it's usually that element. And in the early youth facilities in the classroom wing is, you know, that's usually further down the road. Like in the Situate project, that's included, but they renovated their school that you have instead of tearing it down and putting up a new one, because it was in a better condition than your school. So it's sort of prioritized where the school classrooms that are flexible and multi-generational are the last thing that people do. But a lot of communities are doing that program.
I actually think if we're going to build anything, we should look to build something like this. Because I think if we stop at just the community center before the gym, I think we're selling ourselves short here, because we all know that there's, you know, basketball in the winter. We all know that there's advantages we just heard with walking tracks and senior programming as well. And I think this is what we should really be looking for a quote. Yeah, we can get them in separate pieces if we do want to set a timeline for it. But I think this is more what I think the community could benefit from. But in looking at everything that was presented, it made me think of a couple of thoughts. And so not so much for the architects, which I think you guys did a fantastic job, and I think Halliwell Committee and the Multi-Generational Committee as well. But, you know, this program, I think, speaks to the need that, you know, we will need a facilities manager or a facilities plan on how we're going to maintain new infrastructure, so we don't end up in situations where it's falling apart in 10, 15 years down the line and we're spending tons of money just to repair it. And I also think we need to look at recreation as it's being offered in the community as well. This type of program is going to offer, and it's not anything against the current recreational programs. I think they do a fantastic job, but this is a much different animal altogether. And I think we need to get even more serious about the types of recreational programmings and how we're budgeting for recreation in this town and community, because the interest varies so much from young generations to older generations as well, and how we're going to intertwine and make this thing work. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of. And I think we should also look to, you know, reach out to, you know, the community and businesses as well, not just here, but, you know, other areas, you know, and getting sponsorships, or see if there's potential money as well to help offset some of the cost. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Quick question. Sir, if you look at the left side, the community center, that area to the left where you see, I guess that's over, and the drawing that's chairs and everything right there, where you, to the right, keep going to the right, no, the right,
Where
right.
the stage is.
Yeah. Would that be something that's flat, like an area where the seniors could exercise and do chair aerobics and all that, Zumba and all that stuff?
Go all the way to the end. That, go the other way. To the end. Further. That room is either next. It's either that kind of room where it's flat and it's a little bit more generic, or it's the next room, which is
Oh, yeah.
got the multi-purpose, but it can also be used for theater performance. It can be used for kids to exercise in, seniors to dance. So that there's two types of whatever you want, it could be, but the intent of that room is one of those types of images.
Okay.
It's
So it would be a flat floor
2,000
then?
square foot, flat space,
Okay.
about twice the size of this room.
Okay.
Nice, nice.
Can I ask one more question? And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, or the architect. I remember I was at one of the last meetings where you guys presented, and there was also talk that this would also be used as an emergency shelter in town, correct? I didn't hear that tonight, so that's what I'm asking.
It could be. It wasn't. If you go back the one slide up, you have this room, you have the gym. Potentially, we have one more up. The kitchen. Those are elements that emergency FEMA and those recommend to have in a community for a shelter. So whether it's a warming shelter, a cooling shelter, or an emergency shelter during a storm, it could be handled that way. And
Okay.
we're doing it. The only thing you really have to add is a generator to support the building.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to clarify something. All along, I have supported this committee, and I've said multiple times, we could not afford to pay these people who are professionals sharing their gifts with us. If I came across strongly, and I think I've told some people this, you come to something, you know what you're doing, I will support you. When I said, let's get it done, unless you think, and the other members, it's the right thing, I wouldn't vote for it. Why? You've given how many years now? You're almost ready to retire, for God's sake, with that law. Yeah, don't. So I just want to make everybody here, these people have given so much of their time. And they made sure the people that they went to were the best and they could work with. And that's important. So please, I don't want to give the wrong impression, but I don't want you sitting there another 5 years either. That's what I meant. Thank you.
May I just make another comment?
Yeah.
So I want to thank you very much for this, and I think what it does is it provides us an opportunity. First of all, you can look at that piece of property, and unless you have something like this conceptually in front of you, you don't know what the potential is, right? So it's tremendous, and I have to applaud you on your efforts, If we had $1 bazillion, we'd probably just say, all right, let's just do it tomorrow, right? So, but I thank you for doing it, because for me, and I'll only speak for myself, I feel like I kind of get it now. I really have a better sense of what could be there and how it could be utilized. And there's been talk over the years many, many times for many different uses of that property. And, hearing you say that the wetlands would be possibly a prohibitive way of not expanding it or using it for retail because of the requirements for parking and all that stuff, right? If we are going to use it, it is a community piece of property, and it is going to cost us money. It's not going to bring money in, right? So we have to be very judicious, I think, in how we decide to utilize it. We do have a leg up right now in that we have a $4 million opportunity. And I want to hear from other of the committee members as well, too. But I would be one to ask if, Jeff, you could, get for us the first and second, A and B, so site plan study option. Just as Councilor Ogier said, so the multi-generational building and the gym attached to it or near it. Separate, okay, but in the same proposal, so that we get a pricing for, both of them, or each of them, I should say. And, then we'll have a better idea, too, of where we need to go with how the $4 million will fit into that equation, what other resources we need to complete the project. But I really think, if it's okay with you, Madam, I'd like to ask the other members of the multi-generational and also, Linda's team to tell us what they think here after seeing a presentation. Maybe not everyone has seen it, and it was very well done, and I thank you again for your efforts, and I hope that, in my lifetime, maybe, we can have the whole kit and caboodle, as they say, but, one step at a time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. So I would, as you said, I would also like the members present of the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee to have some input, as well as our Halliwell Review Committee. Our Halliwell members, we've been looking at this for a long time, and I know you guys aren't quiet, so I would also like to make sure that everyone, as we always do, we give the opportunity for folks to speak tonight, too.
Can you speak at the mic? Yeah, thank you.
Robert Nigerian, I'm on the Halliwell Committee. Try to turn this into a positive.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has become one now. You've engaged us, you've engaged the public, and you've engaged the architects in what we did. And I think our chairman's fervor was with regard to the first task, which was to show you, with the professionals' help, what could be, and then whittle it down to what we can afford or what we want. So, all due respect, and for both parties, because everyone's impassioned about this, we gave you what your mind can extend to. These are the things we can do based on the professionals' input. Now we're whittling it down to what is the most important thing, and you've been very constructive with what you're saying. So I feel very positive that we're moving in the right direction. You gave clear direction, it appears, to the architects to give us incremental pricing. Price number one is what we know with the ad for the gym. And that's going to give us something to really hold on to. And the minutia, if you will, of whether it's game room 1, locker room 2, that will be adjusted once we get past the original pricing. They'll fine tune what those rooms are based on what they've heard, and then we'll go through incremental design so that the numbers will relate to what we really want. And as it relates to outdoor activity, you know, that's another thing we can talk about at some point. We don't necessarily need all those fields. We've talked about that extensively. But we wanted to show you what the public, through our meetings, had asked us for. And then you start to look at it and say, well, this is a priority, that's not. So we're getting there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Whoever gets up there first. Just don't throw any elbows, please.
First, I would like to thank Rachel. Where is she? Rachel and I had a long talk about what we would need in a senior center, and by golly, she put everything in that rendering. Excellent. She really knows what we need as a senior center. And I'd like to remind the council that when we began this whole process, we talked about a dedicated space for seniors, and that's not what I'm hearing now. And so I think we need to rethink that. But I also, in doing the presentation, I was very happy to see that it was shown that it could be done in sections, and that first section could be a senior center or a designated space for seniors, whatever you want to call it, because that's what I've been battling for since March 24th, 2021. You know, and then when I was seeing things like high school football field, we have a turf field, for gosh sakes. You know, do we really need that? So I would remind people that we still don't have a senior center. And when a cashier at Stop and Shop is saying to me, how's it going with that senior center? I was shocked to see that North Smithfield didn't have one. I was embarrassed. So she said, I'm behind you. And all these seniors here are in this many, many more that I've been getting phone calls from since 2021. But Rachel did a great job. And that was just with a telephone conversation that she and I had, what we would like to see in a designated space for seniors. And Claire, you know, I got to share this. You know, I'm a grandmother. You know, we've all been, you know, we've all helped our kids with their education. We've been Little League coaches. We've been den mothers. We've been everything that you can imagine. We taught religious education. We taught Bible studies, Brownie leaders, PTA members, band members, helped them, you know. But now, and Jeff, I hope you don't mind, because when I went to the Halliwell meeting and we talked, and Jeff said, and I don't know who said it, but it was suggested that maybe the school bus could drop the kids off at the senior center, and the seniors could help them with their homework. And when I mentioned it to some of our seniors, they gagged, they almost choked. You know, we've been there, we've done that, we bought the T-shirts, you know. We're still paying taxes, we're still active in the community, and I still think a town without a senior center, it speaks volumes about what we think about our seniors. Let me finish, Paulette, okay?
Yeah, no, I wanna make sure
and this is an opportunity for us. We have that $4 million. And the architects tell us that you could make a freestanding building that could be a designated space for seniors. Not to say that the kids can't use it, whatever, you know. We need a senior center where we can be there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and that's what I said to Rachel, and that's what she designed. You know, a place. We would like the bocce, though, and the pickleball and all that stuff outside. You know, it can be used at night. It can be used at weekends. But we need a place where we can go, where we can be, where we can store things. And, you know, Josh, I think you'll agree that, you know, Scouters, we're so thrilled with the money that you all gave us so that we can still have our classes there. We're glad to share with the Scouts. We're happy with that. But we need a place of our own. We have a space, we need a place. Thank you.
Oh, Linda, before you leave, that's why I was asking you. So, do you think that the seniors then, if it is a multi-generational building, won't use it?
Well, if you're going to, but who's going to be in the multi-generation all the time?
Well, I would say during the day, it would always, not be children because they'll be in school, right?
Mhm.
So till like 3
But the way
o'clock.
this is designed, well, it could be used. It could be used by other people. That's what I said. But we need what I'm looking for. What we're all looking for is a space that we can call our own. It can be shared at night. It can be shared on weekends. But a place that can be secure where we can leave things. I mean, Josh knows. When we were doing a dance with walkers, we had to bring them. They were in our cars, and we have to schlep everything in because we have no space. But it could be used by other folks, yes, it could. But I would like to see it a designated place, and that's how Rachel designed it, quite honestly. She's got everything in there, everything in there. There's a big room with the stage. I mean, if the kids wanted to have a show or something, why not? Certainly they could use it, But, let's just remember, and Jeff, and we talk about the hurry up. People have said to me, just what that man said to you, will we see it before our expiration date comes up, So, but it could be used by others as well. Thank you. What?
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I just didn't know if there would have been a conflict or if it would have been not well received or not utilized.
When I say it's not a conflict, Paulette, but what it is sometimes it's how places are left sometimes.
Yes.
And no offense, but kids can be messy. Kids can be messy. Like, even, in Scouters, I remember one time, Josh, that we came in, the kids were writing with crayons. They had brand new tables that Ray had purchased, and there were crayon marks all over. Kids do that. We've all had kids, and we know that they do that. But it's sometimes the way things are left. Like even with the kitchen, which she designed beautifully, because we could have a congregate meal. They call it community table now, where people could come and have lunch. But refrigerators have to be left properly so that, food's just not left there for days and days and days and goes bad. That's where we run into a problem, Paulette. Because kids will be kids, and we're glad they are. We're glad they are what they are. But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent points, as always. Excellent point.
Can I ask a question of the planner?
Yeah, sure.
May I ask a question of you, Mr. Planner, for the grant, or should we wait till the next
I think we should
item?
wait for the
Okay,
grant,
never
yeah,
mind.
let's not get ahead of
I
ourselves.
retract my statement. Sorry.
No, out of-
I don't want to confuse the mix. Thank you.
Out of respect for BH+A,
Yes.
I'd like to have them hear our feedback, and then
Yeah, good idea.
they
Thank you.
don't need to be part of the next couple agenda items. I want to be respectful of their
Couple of
time.
hours. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Josh Sylvia, Multi-Generational Facility, Committee, sorry. The Scouts' needs may be a moot point, but at this point, we're still part of what this facility is going to be. Am I correct to assume that this is more of a conceptual, this is not, this is just a basic footprint showing needs. So, it's not the time for me to say, where are the drive-up bays? We need storage. So this is just more of a conceptual thing at this point to get some kind of general layout and idea of what's going on, correct? That's correct. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Valerie Popek. I've lived here 14 years. I live at the Slater Mills. I hope I present myself well. It's the first time I've done this. But what I'm seeing here, just so you know, I just retired last year. So I'm new being retired, but I love what I'm doing. This is what I do in a day at the senior center, okay, just so you know, because I haven't heard senior center kind of really here. And that's what I thought that we were going for through all of this. So this is what I do. Sit, fit, and be strong, Zumba, line dancing, Tai Chi, yoga, tap class, 3 of them, lunch, bingo, and other classes, and tap shows. That's all within the senior center. I'm not kind of seeing rooms for all of these different things that we do at where I am now in Woonsocket. I'm not seeing any of that, and am I missing the point, or am I not understanding something that's missing here? I'm sorry, but I'm just not getting it. I mean, we have like 5 different rooms that we use in the Woonsocket Senior Center, and I'm sorry if I'm missing something, but that's what I thought this building was supposed to be for. Thank you.
I'd like to just address those comments, if you will. One of the things that we have looked at is flexibility of these spaces. That means you can do Zumba in one. That means you can do tap in the same room, but the room is set up differently so that you're able to accomplish those activities. One of the things that we look at with all of these spaces is flexibility, because activities change so frequently. And you know, the seniors that go down to Scouters can speak to this as well, that they're always setting up that main room in different ways for all the different activities. So while there might not be a dedicated tap dance room, but I believe, Rachel, you do have a dance room on the 2nd floor. There's the game room. But for a lot of these other activities, it's the multi-purpose room, the gymnasium. So while that would accommodate those sorts of activities. I want to also address the fact that, you know, we have spoken with BH+A about the language that we are using for this building. There are so many terms that are being thrown around this town of senior centers, Scouters, community center, space for seniors, multi-generational center. Our group, as the Halliwell Review Committee, our ultimate recommendation last year was that we look at a multi-generational facility. That was where this started, with our group. So I want to underscore the fact that we are being very careful with our terminology, because we don't want to isolate any one group. We don't want to isolate the seniors, but we don't want to also isolate the rest of the community. That first part of that's labeled the community center, I asked to be labeled as community center, but it's dedicated space for seniors. So I want to be perfectly clear with everybody. While there's labels on this plan, we are trying to address needs for all members of this community based off of our original recommendation, that it's able to account for seniors, it's able to account for preschoolers, for folks that are your age and my age, and everywhere in between. This is the place in North Smithfield where the community should be coming together, not just one group, but all groups. And I want to underscore that. That's what makes North Smithfield a community, is if we all come together, not just one group or another. So based off of our recommendations, based on what we have heard from the community through various surveys, talking with community members at Pumpkin Fest, at our meetings, at basically every event that we've been to, we are planning a space for the community as a whole, because this is an amenity for the community as a whole. So while there are labels on these plans that are, say, one thing over another, we're not trying to exclude or include any particular group. I want to make that perfectly clear to everyone that's here tonight, that's everyone that's listening on YouTube, that has been our goal, that has been our recommendation, and that has been our charge from the council on our resolution. It says it right in our resolution that we are to research and master plan a multi-generational facility. So I just want to remind everybody of that's what our charge is. If it's the council's prerogative to change that direction, which is on the agenda for later tonight, that is your prerogative. We take that direction from you. But we have been reporting back to you from what we have heard.
You know, Mr. Porter, just to kind of piggyback on that, and, you know, I was going to say that before you did, but just, we have to remind everyone that this grant that we do have before us is for multi-generational. So we cannot say that this section is just for a certain criteria, this section's for a certain criteria. The community's going to come together, whether it be outside, indoors, doing the garden. So, and we just have to remember that, and we just can't like label certain things. We just have to look at it as that it's going to be for the community. It's going to be for all ages. Whatever time certain ages use it, it's just going to be a community area. And we just have to remember that, because that is what the grant is for multi-generational. So I think we need to stay kind of focused on what we can do with the space for the community at large.
My name is Bob Thurber, 20 Bryan Avenue. I'm wondering if any of the committee members have been to the Mancini Center, the Gloucester Senior Center, the Woonsocket Senior Center, and have you ever seen any of the younger children at those facilities? We need a place for the seniors, period. That's it. That's what we're here for. They haven't had anything in this town for decades. It's not asking too much, I don't think, for the people who have supported this town. You want to do all this other stuff? Why are we building another football field? We have a turf field that we weren't even able to walk on, the track. We couldn't even walk on the track. Do we show up, do all the seniors show up at the track in the football field and say, hey, we're going to use this now? We need our own space. It's not asking too much. I don't know what happened with the Scouters Hall. We were talking about adding onto that and building that. I don't know what happened to that project. We need our own space for the seniors, period. The Mancini Center has it, North Providence has it, Lincoln has it, Gloucester has it, Johnston has it. It's a senior center, period. Thank you.
Madam President, may I ask a question to the planner? If the seniors had that space Monday through Friday, and then during the weekends or later at night, we let the stage be used by, say, children, maybe scouts, or if they were going to, or school kids that were going to put on a play, would that fulfill the requirements of it making it multi-generational?
Yes.
Mark Carullo, Town Planner. To answer your question, just briefly, yes. Okay. The vision in the grant was focused on a different property. So someone mentioned Scouters. And as there was already a building there that was being used by the Scouts and shared by them with the seniors, the idea was to put an addition on there with a wing dedicated to the seniors and have it merged together with a centralized space that would be used by both. That was the vision in the grant. It appears that we're changing directions, looking at a different site, and as we look at designing a new facility from scratch, that from what the Halliwell committee is saying and for what we're hearing today, clearly the seniors need a space, they want a space, and that was the intent of the original grant, that there would be an addition onto that building dedicated to the seniors while the Scouts would be renovated and upgraded, and that would be used by youth groups and the Scouts. And like I said, there'd be a common area that could be used by both. So when you're looking at this facility here and only that on the right, you know, yes, if it was used daily by the seniors and then in evenings and weekends by different youth groups, I think that would qualify. And that nothing's to say that on a Saturday there couldn't be seniors and youth in there if there was a youth play and seniors came to watch the play, or other things were happening in there that could be coordinated with both, not forced on anybody, but agreed to by the groups where it benefits both groups. You have that you asked the question, Councilman, what is that room? That is a multi-purpose room with a stage at the end of it. A lot of senior centers have those. They use them for meal sites, they use them for plays, they use them for bingo, they use them for dances, and there's nothing to say that a youth group couldn't go in there and use it for, a Pinewood Derby race or whatever else they would use it for. So I would say there is a way to work this out, that the building could be built to satisfy both, but it could be dedicated specific times and specific areas only for one group or the other.
Would that be acceptable?
Can I ask a question too? So maybe this isn't for the planner, maybe it's for the architect, but inside the square footage that we saw on that first option, how much of the square footage was dedicated for seniors? And then at one of the meetings I was at, I know that there was discussion of that this type of building would most likely have to be staffed by somebody at the front desk. And I'm assuming inside these plans, there's probably key card access where you could lock down portions of the building or identify other areas that maybe could be shared spaces on evenings, et cetera. Well, there's other areas that are just dedicated for seniors.
Your building needs to be staffed. There needs to be a
Right,
manager and a coordinator in that building. There's no
yeah,
doubt.
so I'm trying to adjust, like, I know when, I heard a comment where, well, maybe it won't be as clean. There should be checklists and cleaning and maintenance from the staff that are operating it to ensure it's set up the next morning for the seniors, et cetera. So I agree, I think we need dedicated space, but I think we can also look at potential other areas that maybe it's a room here and there in the evening that can be used, like a multi-purpose room, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Wasn't really a question for you.
Is that something that's reasonable?
Answer, Mr. Osha, but you know what, I think you weren't hearing when Val got up to speak. On any day, in any senior center, all of that could be used all at the same time. There's somebody in the dance room, there's somebody in the kitchen, there's somebody, maybe not the big room with the stage, but on any given day, if you follow Val or any of these people around, there's a Zumba class going on, there's a line dancing class going on, there's tap class going on down there, chair yoga's over here, mindful meditation's going on there. They could be playing cribbage, pitch, playing pool, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
So it's not like they use 3 rooms.
No, that's not what, that's not where I was coming from.
But the tendency, even in the Taj Mahal of the Mancini Center, Senior Center, the whole space is being used. You know, that's what
Yeah, I was looking more like evenings, if there was like rooms that could be used, maybe, not like necessarily during the day or,
That's what we said.
yeah, that's where I was coming from.
Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. Sometimes they have something at night, sometimes they don't, most of the times they don't. Especially in the wintertime, seniors don't like to drive at night,
Cool.
and shouldn't. But, you know, yes, that's when things could be used at night, or maybe on a weekend, or whatever.
Well, what I'm also thinking of is like the gym, right? So like it's the winter time, right? And there's a walking track. Say there's like yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Like there's other areas that, yeah, like maybe there's areas we can identify. Kind of, I think what Mr. Councilman Bjerga was saying. Maybe there's areas we can identify. Yeah.
Can you go to the podium so people can hear you?
I'm allowed.
Yes, you are.
So, I guess the question Mr. Bjergard had is a really important one. If it was utilized by others, would that be satisfactory, or would you still feel that, and again, this is just feedback, we're trying to figure out how we get this thing to move along, right? Would you feel that it was not your space as it wouldn't, you know, would it not be dedicated? Is that something that you would be uncomfortable with if others used the property at different times, evenings, weekends, that type of thing? Would that be something that would not fit the criteria that you had in mind? And I think we need to know that. I think his question is very pertinent, because that would be something that changes direction in how we are focusing on a community versus a senior single thing. Well, whoever wants to address it.
And just real.
Sharon's shaking her head over there, but, you know, when the other committee that I'm on, the other one, Senior Citizen Advisory, we visited other senior centers in Northern Rhode Island because, you know, they're more like us, like Gloucester, and we went to Lincoln, and then if we did go to Woonsocket as well. But for instance, Lincoln Senior Center, it's a senior center, but people use it at night, Sharon. You know, other people do use it at night, and it's allowed. The same thing in Gloucester, at Woonsocket Senior Center. People use that. You know, they'll come in at night, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. But all of those places have a dedicated maintenance people, you know, that keep track of things, you know. So as far as I'm concerned, and that's only me in my opinion, if people come in at night, I don't see that there's an issue. What do you think, seniors? I don't think it's an issue at all on a weekend or at night.
Can you have to go?
Sharon, talk.
Sharon Thurber, 20 Bryan Avenue, and I've been a resident in North Smithfield since '73. So both of our kids, they went to all the school systems. I was on many committees. I was on the NSCS committee. I was on the school committee that we ended up renting St. Paul Street. So I've been in town doing, and I've been on the substance abuse committee. I've been in town for a while doing different things. I agree with my husband and all the other seniors that we need a space to call our own. If you want to give us that section A, that building A, from 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, as a designated senior space, I would agree with that.
Yeah, good.
That means there's a game room, there's a big multi-purpose, we need a couple of rooms to dance and do other activities. I mean, it's just, you know, I would be fine with that. And I've been pushing for a senior center for a long time. And I've been in this town long enough to know that they drag their feet constantly. Look how long Halliwell's been empty. And they did nothing for what, 10 years now? At least that.
Let me see.
Even more.
I don't think it's
When did,
It's been
what
10
was
years.
Halliwell's last year? Does anybody know?
October
It was like 18
2019 was when it was
2019, yeah,
decommissioned.
recent.
So
Were there classes in 2019 at Halliwell?
Yes.
Yeah, there
Yes,
was.
there
right?
was.
There was.
That's better than I thought. That's good. My kids went to Halliwell.
We're moving.
And I'm a public school teacher, special ed, 32 years in Attleboro. And I could not believe when I saw that school. What the heck are they doing, building a school like that in New England? It was ridiculous. I know Claire and I go way back, you know, and so.
It was a California style.
I know it was. I know
But
they
you
thought
know
it
the
was.
kids loved that school? They loved it.
Yeah.
They loved that school.
Yeah.
Right
Well,
to the
I
end.
thought it was crazy. You know?
Well, maybe that's why
But
they
anyway, that my kids went there and they did fine, and you know they went on to the high school. But from 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, I think would be doable, except if we have a show, like on the stage, but that could be planned out, and then we'd have to have someone staff it. You know, but I want use of the kitchen. You want use of the big room, and 2 or 3 small rooms, or a space in the big room that can be sectioned off somehow. Because in Woonsocket, they have many rooms. In Mancini Center, they have many rooms. Same in Lincoln. I know we're not Lincoln. I know we don't have Twin River down the road, giving us tax money.
That's right.
But you know, I get that. Believe me, I've been in this town long enough, and I pay high enough taxes. But we still need a place for us. I think the seniors that have been kicked down the road for years and years and years and years. Enough people. And I had 2 kids that went through, and I was appreciative. My kids went to this school. This was the gym.
That's
When
right.
my kids went to school here. You know? So it's upsetting as you get older to realize that the town isn't really doing anything for its seniors. They really haven't. And you have to admit that. They used to have meals at Scouters Hall. There's none of that anymore. You know?
At one time,
It's
you
like-
had meals here.
Yeah,
And the
I
kids
don't.
would come up from Halliwell to give little presentations.
I guess I didn't think about it enough when I was in my 30s and 40s, 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, and now I am.
I'll be 75 my next birthday. And I hope to see this before I'm under the ground.
Me too.
You know? Thank you.
Thanks. Madam, may I ask one quick question? Josh, would you be able to?
Oh, I think she wanted to go first.
Oh, I'm so
I
sorry.
think we should
I'm
let-
so sorry.
Josh,
I
if you
didn't
don't mind
realize
waiting,
she
she
was
was.
on. No, I just wanted to, I'll ask him a question when you're done. Thanks.
I'm Joyce Dolbeck, currently living at Laurelwood, but my family brought me here in 1959. 3 generations have been here and went through the school system and was one of the last classes from Halliwell, our youngest one, our granddaughter. I can't really name, like everybody else, all the different community things we've done here. My husband and I were on Tiff Road since '74. We came back to raise our family. My parents were extremely busy into the community. Mama started the first brownie troop right up here at St. John's in 1960, it would have been. And what I'm saying is I represent a different population right now. As you can see, I am disabled. And I used to be able to travel all over, all these different centers and stuff, to serve people doing public health since '95. But before that, did direct sales. So I traveled all over. I'm not able to, and I represent that population. I'm gifted still with my mouth, so I share that with you. I'm limited where I can drive, so I can only really drive in this area right now. And there's many people, I think, that can attest that there's people in their homes, and one thing we need, and it was proven through COVID, we need to be able to survive with socialization, whatever way you want to do it. And the socialization is not only just for our little ones, it's for us. And my speaking is not what it used to be, nor my writing, but I have the privilege to stand up and represent that population. Been a taxpayer for all those years. And as I say, 3 generations have gone through the school system here. I wasn't able to. I was already in Providence doing high school. My sister, my brother, our 3 children, and our youngest grandchild. And they all went through Halliwell. In fact, Dr. Halliwell was our pediatrician when we moved here. And his brother's family, Bill's, used to babysit all those kids. So the remembrance of that, maybe we still could keep that name down there, because he did die of polio, God bless him. And so what I'm saying is, there's a lot of history in this town. I used to be able to tell you it all, but I can't now. Some of you on the board here, council, excuse me, I've known for years, and you've known all 3 of our generations. Please, and we were able to get money from our buddy Cicilline, right? And in fact, the group I'm on was calling everybody this week. I can really only talk to people that I know, because you got to fill in the blanks. But Claire, Paulette, and John. And so I didn't make the calls because I need to talk to you one-on-one so you can help me. But please, please, I know I make a joke with Lynn and I that 15 minutes after my collation, you're all going to go to the opening of our senior center. You know? And so please, the money has come. I respect, and I think it's Jeff. Yeah, I'm sorry, I know you're behind Linda. I want to speak correctly. And the Halliwell group, I have followed you in the paper, the committee. But now, we got to have some action. Part of me, because some of you know I ran grants for years, and federal grants as well. Sometimes there's a time limit. See, excuse me, I got to close my eyes so I can talk. Sometimes there's a time limit. And then all of a sudden, and some of you know this, they'll announce to you, you got 30 days to use the grant. That's all I can tell you. So let's not waste it, all right? Thank you for your attention.
Madam President, if you will, I want to thank everybody for voicing their opinions this evening. It's very eye-opening to see the various perspectives. I'm very thankful that you've come out to speak this evening. I wish I could sit with each and every one of you to trade stories because my son is 7th generation. I come from a long line that has been in town as well. Many of you probably know my great-grandfather, Carl Christensen, who did Halliwell. I don't know if any of you know. He resigned in protest because he said Halliwell wasn't appropriate to be built here. That's part of my motivation to be here tonight, to close that circle for him. In the respect of everybody else's time, though, we do have quite a few other agenda items to speak to tonight. So unless there's any further feedback for BH+A this evening, I would like to thank them for their time and their presentation. I think this has been extremely helpful for everybody that's been involved, and I thank them for their hard work, and it certainly has not gone unnoticed throughout our entire community. So thank you for taking the time to be here tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Very much.
So, Madam President, if you don't mind, I would like to continue moving our meeting forward and going to the next agenda item. We can take a two-minute recess?
Yeah, all right,
Okay.
we're going to take a 2-minute recess, so anyone who wants to leave can all set?
Yep.
Do you want me to do it, or are you going to do it?
I don't want to speak because it's going to be your council that's making the decision tonight, so.
All right, so next item is discussion by council vote or other action on grant funding at Pacheco versus Halliwell.
So, Madam President, there has been a lot of discussion in the past month or so about the grant that has been awarded to the town to the tune of $4 million by the federal government through Congressman Cicilline. There has been further discussion of whether the Pacheco property is the appropriate place to put the money or the Halliwell property. So we have both committees here this evening, and I think it would be prudent for us to be able to move forward for both groups, whether or not which group might be overseeing that funding. If it's the council's prerogative to continue the funding at Pacheco, or to revise it and put it at the Halliwell property. I could tell you where I think it goes. I think everybody else in this room could tell you where they think it needs to go. And there's been, from the folks that have been in this room, there appears to be a shift of where it should be going. But again, that's not the Halliwell Review Committee's decision. That's not the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee's decision. So that's why we put that on the agenda. And we're kind of blurring the lines between agenda item 4 and 5 with the grant funding and the direction for both committees. But they somewhat go hand in hand, because if one group is receiving $4 million, then we may need to adjust course, and another group might need to adjust course. So I leave it to the council to have that discussion on where that funding may lie. We did ask Mark Carullo and Bobby Moynihan of the Planning Department to be here. I had a few questions for them because I want to make sure that we have clear answers on timeline, time frame of when this money needs to be spent, when it expires. Have a very clear understanding, because that's the first item. As one of the members earlier said, it could be gone in 30 days. We want to make sure that we're avoiding that issue. So I'll turn the mic back over to you folks to have that discussion. I'm sure everybody here has an opinion as well. But again, the planning department is here to answer questions as best they can and move forward from there.
Thank you. Mr. Carullo, do you want to?
You have questions?
I do.
Mark Carullo, Town Planner.
So can you kind of give us a summary of what's the time frame, when's the expiration, what justifies as a multi-generational? So now we received the grant at one location, now somehow it turned into another location. So how that would all work and whether it's feasible, and is there any issues in doing that? Can you kind of just give us a summary?
It's a long question.
I know.
And I'm not to presume that it has changed locations yet. I think that's what we're here to discuss tonight. But as far as the grant goes, Bobby and I today went back through all of the paperwork a couple of times, and the expiration date. I had initially thought it was March 2027, but as we went back through, we found out it's August 31, 2031.
Thank you, God.
So there's plenty of time, but that doesn't mean that we should take our time.
No.
Okay. With regard to the location, we had a conference call with HUD probably a month and a half ago to 2 months ago by now. And we asked them about relocating the site, and they said as long as it was new construction and as long as it was a currently town-owned property, that we could transfer the site. The next step for us in our process is to complete the award paperwork. That paperwork requires us to put together a description of the project along with the location of the project. So we haven't done that. We've been holding off on that. It also requires us to provide a very rough draft budget for the project, which would include design and construction. So those are really the next steps for us. With regard to the facility, I think we talked about that earlier, in that, you know, the concept that we had was one thing, but at the end of the day, if it meets the intent of the grant, with regard to being utilized not solely by one group, but by multi-generations of groups, doesn't mean it has to be utilized simultaneously, although it could, but it would need to be a multi-generational facility in that it is open and accessible to generations, both young and old. I think we talked about that earlier, and I think that seems to be something that could be worked out among the groups.
So you say it expires in August of 2031?
That's the deadline for the completion of the project as well as submission for the request for funding. So we can request funding incrementally throughout the process once our grant contract has been signed and approved by HUD. That's the next step that we're waiting to do, but we can't do that until we know the site.
Anyone else?
So I have a question. We don't have any, so tonight, we decided that we would have the architects draw up, or ask Jeff to ask them to draw up some pricing, right, for that one building and the gymnasium. Now, we don't have anything similar to that. We've never seen anything similar for the location that it was originally suggested that it go to, right?
That's correct, yeah.
We need to find that out. We need to find out somehow what a similar sized building, you know, would be at Pacheco. And it will dovetail on a question I have about the Scouts as well, because originally, the way you very succinctly portrayed it earlier on, the application itself was put in for two distinctive...
A building with two wings,
right,
basically.
And one would be for the Scouts, so they'd have upgraded facilities. We know that that building's been there a long time. And then one specifically for the seniors. So I know I did hear tonight that there were some concerns about pulling out of that parking lot. I'm sure those are things that we would absolutely have to identify before and, you know, possibly make. We did purchase that property at the corner, right? There was a house that we knocked down with the intent, again, that was a plan, to have, you know, that widened for safety purposes and whatnot, and also just to make it easily accessible, okay? So I don't know how we make a decision on which location unless we have something to compare. That's what I'm thinking, but I don't know how the rest of the council.
I think, Ms. Hamilton, if I may.
Yes, sir.
With our cost estimate that we're going to be receiving from BH+A, we'll get a square foot cost.
Okay.
As Mrs. Tebow has said, she had spoken with one of the architects, Ms. Young, from BH+A, to identify the programmatic elements that were shown this evening. That first wing is primarily senior space.
Yep.
We could use the square footage based off that, that element of the building and add in the square footage of Scouters Hall and come to an approximation.
Okay.
We could look at escalation. Certainly, escalation for construction costs are settling down. It's not as volatile as it was these past couple of years. So we could certainly look at doing something similar to that.
Okay. Thank you.
But Councilwoman, that wasn't your question, was it? The
Yeah.
cost?
Yeah, I mean.
I thought it was the design.
Well, square footage or design or something that we can, in other words, if we're saying we have an opportunity to look at which one of these, right, Pacheco or Halliwell, right, which location is the best, most cost-effective, the most effective utilization of the funding, et cetera, right? We don't have anything, we can say we want to put it at Pacheco, but the only thing that we've asked this evening to date, to right this minute, is that we've asked to get a square footage or a design or some kind of conceptual drawing of, you know, what that cost would be that we saw this evening at Halliwell, right?
Yeah, I mean, but to answer your question, you would need to do a full assessment of both properties to compare them evenly.
Right.
So you would do site assessment of Halliwell, site assessment of Pacheco. Now, there are cost savings potentially at Pacheco in that there's an existing building there. I don't know the condition of the building, but sometimes it's less money to rehab an existing building rather than to build new. Sometimes it's cheaper to build new. It really depends.
Right.
So someone would have to do that assessment. So to get an apples-to-apples comparison, you'd probably have to have the architectural group look at both properties in total and come back to you with cost estimates of each property in total.
So I have a question, Madam President, if it's okay. So I'm looking at these maps here that overlay Scouters Hall and Pacheco and what, I don't know who did these. Jeff, did you do these?
Yeah, and after further conversation with Mark, I was really trying to identify wetlands.
It's okay.
And not being a wetlands biologist.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to hold you to the science, so don't worry.
They're not great. So that was, you know, quick, almost back of the napkin sketches.
But I'm looking at these, right, and I hear what you're saying, Mark, and I'm looking at, okay, well, you know, you're going to potentially put, I'm assuming this is the square footage of the building down at Halliwell, this 16,000, 12,000 range,
Plus or
somewhere in that,
minus,
right?
yeah.
Do we want to put that size building in there? And then what is the impact to the existing field structure? What's the parking situation going to look like down there? You know, how congested is that area, that intersection going to become? You're going to have to add a light, a stop sign? Like, you know, I think of it from other areas, and the more I sit back, the more I kind of think Halliwell is probably the way we should be going. We can start clean. We don't have to worry about some of the existing issues that could present themselves in terms of how are we going to reconfigure that? Because, like, what happens if we have to take away a baseball field? Where are we going to put it? So I agree that, you know, we can move prudently, but I also think that, you know, I think the question we really need to ask is, do we want that type of space down there, and is it feasible to even put it down there? Because, you know, all of us have been down there for Election Day and other events, and it's tough to park, it's tough to come in and out. I mean, you're going to have to fix the parking situation, you know, and probably redesign most of it down there in order to make it work outside of just the building.
I think you would clearly need to redesign the access point.
Right.
And when we were looking at it, there's some tennis or basketball courts over to the left. You'd probably forfeit those for parking.
Yeah, and then there's a playground.
I think the playground, we had looked at that. That playground could probably be reconstructed, but it was also thought, and not to hop on this and get too deep into the weeds, but you know, there are some commercial buildings out front, and they have excess surplus parking to the rear. I think an arrangement could be worked out where the town could either purchase that or establish cross easements where the town could use that parking in conjunction with that facility. So, you know, when you're looking at, that's what I meant, if you look at both sites, you'd really have to do a full assessment of both sites. I mean, I'd have to say, and I'd have multiple questions for the architects and the landscape architect that presented earlier. If you've got a football field there and you've got, you know, 50 parking spaces, you're not going to be able to have a football game, because you need a lot more than 50 parking spaces to accommodate a high school football game.
Right.
I mean, we know what happens over here, as well as if you've got something going on in the building. So the other issue with all of that recreational while there are wetlands on the site, there was no accommodation for the buffers and the setbacks in the site plans that were presented tonight. So I'm going to say that most of the recreational activities would not be able to be built there, especially the softball field built into the slope. There's no way that that would be approved by DEM. No way. It's in the middle of a wetland.
Right, yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
So, but that being said, you could do a full assessment of both. I don't know whether you could extend the contract of BH+A to look at both sites if that was your prerogative, or you just wanted to decide to go to Halliwell. That's really the council's prerogative.
And is there a timeline on the acceptance of the grant? I didn't hear that piece. I know somebody.
I don't know the answer to that question. That's a good question. We could reach out to HUD. They didn't seem to be any urgency on their behalf as to when we were following through. We kind of left it as we need to go back to the council because we talked about 3 scenarios. We talked about the Pacheco property. We talked about an alternate property. And we talked about the Halliwell property. So that was all part of our conversation at the time. And we told them that we were deliberating. They gave us clear direction that if it was the Pacheco or the Halliwell, it would be an easier path for us to follow than if it was an alternate property. So, we took that, and I think some of that information was probably disseminated to the council. I imagine it was. So that's why I think we're kind of looking at 2 sites.
Gotcha. And Jeff, how long would a full assessment take, just out of curiosity?
Well, currently, BH+A is waiting on the demolition of the buildings down at Halliwell to do a full site survey. That will also bring in the wetlands delineation, so we'll get a better idea. When Weston and Sampson did it, they were kind of using GIS, view from resources online and the like. So I could certainly reach out to BH+A for an additional service to amend their contract to do just what Mr. Cruel is explaining to us for a site assessment. What that would cost, I would have to wait and see what that comes back as.
The question is, do we really want to sacrifice a beach volleyball court and a basketball court? We have the perfect place down at Halliwell. It doesn't fit at Pacheco. We're going to have to lose. People use those courts.
They do.
They use the basketball courts and they use the beach volleyball court. We want to take that away from them to put a parking lot? We suffer from paralysis by overanalysis. We got to we make a decision. We want to put it down at Halliwell. Let's move on. We don't have to spend the money on another study to decide if we want to put it in Pacheco or not. It doesn't fit. It's just not fitting. It fits down at Halliwell. Look at all that space. They got a football field down there. That's how much space they got.
Well, we just heard that that's not really going to fit, but it's just, I don't know, it's just getting concerning because it sounds like now it's becoming a senior center and not a multi-generational facility. And, we heard from the Scouts last meeting that they're okay staying where they are, but they need money to fix that building. So where is that money going to come from? Because the whole grant is going to go to this other building that every time we talk about it, it sounds like it's just a senior center. And yes, I understand the seniors need a space, but it's a multi-generational grant. So to say that, we're going to limit times that other people can use it, I mean, how do we do that? Like, how do we say, okay, they were talking about summer camp, for instance. Okay, so now you can bring your summer camp down here and you have kids in and out and you have this open facility because you have all these different things to do down there, but now they can't use it from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. And then what happens if the seniors want to have a dinner? Well, now we're, encroaching into the time that they said that the kids could use it. So I think when we're going to start doing barriers of who can use what at what time, that's why the Scouters was working, because they had their own separate area. They had a shared area, whether it be with a kitchen or a public space, so that they could have dinners. Not that I'm saying Halliwell's not a great location, it is, but it just doesn't sound like now we're kind of getting territorial, like, well, this is our space, and you can use it at certain times. And I don't think that's what we're trying to get at. We're trying to get a multi-generational facility that is open to the community, and whether we want to, you know, maybe we do continue to look into boys and girls and get us something like that with the pool and the gym and all this stuff, and we can, you know, somehow get some income on it. Maybe do daycare, maybe do camps, you know. But just to say that, you know, this space can only be used at this time and this space can be used at that, I think we're just setting ourselves up for a complete failure. But so if we can maybe come up with some kind of situation like that at Halliwell, because I can't see that we're going to start limiting who can use what at what time. And the scouts, where are we going to get money to fix the building? Because they're, you know, they're like, oh, we're happy where we are, but we need funds to fix the building. Well, you know, I don't.
So Madam President,
Yeah.
I know I said earlier, I think the main building with the gym was the ideal one, but I think in an ideal world, you'd go the main building, the gym, and the classroom addition. Because I'm assuming the classroom addition was, I know there's talk of universal pre-K coming, and potentially the scouts could use it. I think that's where, by you just building one building, that's where you're limiting yourself. I think this has to, I know we've talked phased, but I think we need to look at it as a whole. And yeah, maybe you set a timeline in terms of the phased construction, but I don't see us being able to put classrooms at Scouters or other areas to expand outside of just those two wings. I mean, I could be wrong. I'll admit if I'm wrong, and I might be, but I see what BH+A has done, and they can even add this plus a pool, and there's still a ton of extra space down there with the setbacks, at least just for the building. I agree. I don't think you could put a football field with all the parking unless maybe you're building a parking complex, which is a whole other issue. But that's kind of where I'm coming from. I think the long-term plan of Halliwell kind of tackles those issues of how can you segment the building so that it can flow on a day-to-day basis throughout the whole day.
So may I interrupt you
Yeah, I was
just for a
kinda done,
second?
yeah,
You're
you're
kind of done. So if we're going to move on this, I don't think that that we can continuously add, you know, classrooms and this and that and this and that, this, that. That's years of, you know, budgeting and tax increases and looking for more grants and trying to supplement it. I think we've heard tonight very clearly is people want this to get started sooner than later, right? So that's our goal. How do we get there, right? How do we get there? The quickest way, utilizing that $4 million, shovels in the ground, getting it ready so that people can, you know, I mean, several people said it, and, you know, we never know where we're going to be in a year from now, right? They want to see this, at least if we showed good faith in that we were moving it forward. But as we continue to put additional restrictions and modifications and things, not that that shouldn't be done at some point, but I think it will prohibit the utilization of the funds in a manner that will provide something quickly for seniors. You know?
Councilors, if I may, it's sounding like we're having two discussions, really. Logistics and building. We don't have to worry about logistics if we don't have a building, plain and simple. The Halliwell Review Committee has been speaking with the YMCA. We spoke with the Boys and Girls Club that have offered guidance and assistance in running these types of buildings. We need to have further discussions with them. So I would like to say, offer that input right now. Because while it might be great to have a space 8 to 4, might not, you know, fit within the letter of our grant. So I just offer that up as something to think about as well. We're really thinking about two things: is the building, what we want to provide in the building, and what we want to provide is logistically. If we're going to bring on additional town staff to run the building, or if we're going to be looking at outside groups to run the building. So there's, you know, I feel like with each conversation that we have, we open up more questions as we continue. and we try to offer up as much guidance as we can, as we've had our multiple meetings over the course of the past, when were we formed? 3 years ago? 2021. So we've been at it for a while.
Thank you. I was just asking him for the air conditioning before I wilt in front of you. Okay, so I guess my question again is, how do we get from here to that point in the quickest fashion using the $4 million? Because if we add this, now it's not 4 million, now it's 8 million, then it's 10 million, then it's 12 million. And that requires bonding, that requires, you know, so it's so much more complicated to get a building up and running, right? We have the 4 million for new construction, and so should we be utilizing that in the quickest manner so that we don't run into any problem? Now that we know it's 2031, I guess we have a little bit of time, right?
Well, no, because the longer you dilute it and push it out, the less that 4 million really buys you.
Well,
so then
yeah,
you're going to
I
be
would like to see
bonding regardless.
Right, which I don't think, I mean, if it's a senior center and it's for seniors and then we tax them to death for their own senior center, I don't think that makes any sense.
But I think,
so we should use the money that we've got right now that is well, it's our tax dollars, of course, federal, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I would love to have all these new things and beautiful things and stuff, but if it's the cost to the seniors negates their let's say their senior exemption, right? The cost just negates it. Can we just use what we have now and try to get this at least going?
see, I view it a little bit differently. I view it, if you were to put a gym down there, you know, I think too, like, you could run AAU camps, you can pull in tournaments, you can charge to use that facility. It's not going to generate a ton of revenue, but it's going to generate some revenue. And you could probably, I think it was either the architect or somebody said, you know, you could charge for space, you know, that you're charging out maybe. I think there's ways that you could recoup some money in it. It's not going to cover everything. But I also don't know if $4 million is going to get you everything you need down at Scouters.
It's not, Jeff,
It's a
that
start.
a senior center, a community center that you called it in your plan, that'd be phase 1 of that plan, right?
It very well could be,
Yeah.
if that's the direction from the council.
Right.
And I will repeat what I've said at multiple meetings before, with this $4 million for Scouters. You're looking at $1 million for site work, $2 million for the building, and probably $500,000 to $750,000 for all the design work, the soft costs, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So it's going to disappear, and then there's going to, yeah, I said site work. So, I mean, that's going to get eaten up pretty quickly. And I did ask, I'm going to put Mr. Carullo and Mrs. Tebow on the spot. Mr. Carullo, you had said that with that funding, we could potentially use that $4 million for grants from other groups. Did I hear that right?
No, you asked me.
I asked you that,
Yes,
but I
you
didn't.
asked me if the money could be used to leverage money towards the project, and my answer was, I don't see why not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, Mrs. Tebow, there are grants for senior centers that we could use that additional money to match. So, so there's other opportunities where we could potentially, you know, we could try to think creatively about how we can also stretch that $4 million for us.
But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
You know, I'm not saying that we can, I'm not saying that we can't, but there's the potential for it.
So we have till 2031, but.
To complete the project,
So we'll see you then.
not to decide, Councilwoman.
No.
I thought it would have graduated.
Are there certain things we need to complete by certain times? Are there deadlines throughout the time period, or is it
No,
just?
there are not. So, I mean, our first obligation is to complete the contract.
And do we have a certain time frame on that?
They did not give us a time frame. So I would say no, but I would think that we'd want to move prudently and quickly. So we need to know the site, and then we need to write up a description with the site, and we need to put together a budget. I would say if it's going to be Halliwell, we could turn that part of our project over to the architects, and they could write that up for us and do a budget for us, which would probably be better than Bobby and I trying to put that together.
Oh, come on.
We know you can.
Cutting yourself short.
I'll help you guys any way I can.
I say we make a decision. This has been going on. Just make a decision. I will actually, I'll be willing to make the motion to officially have the location of the multi-generational facility at Halliwell.
And I'll second that motion.
Yes, I will make that motion
And
to
I
official, I would like to make a motion to officially approve Halliwell as the location for the multi-generational facility that we will be working on with the bond, with the grant, the $4 million grant. That's a motion.
And I second that motion.
Discussion?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
We have.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were supposed-
So we're making this motion, we're gonna do it, and we're going to just continue with what we had asked tonight to have the pricing provided to us.
I think, I don't want to speak for Councilman Biragad, but I think the idea is to switch it to Halliwell completely,
Yes, that's the motion.
so that Mark can go forward with actually accepting this $4 million.
So I'm gonna, I know we just I'm analyzing again, and I apologize. If it comes to the fact that it's, $15 million, what do we do next?
Right, I think we should get some information before we.
Yeah, I don't know that we can, because if it is $15 million at Halliwell, and we can do it for $4 million at Pacheco.
But you don't know if it's going to be $4
Well, we
million
don't,
at
no,
Pacheco.
that's what I'm saying,
It could
we're
be
just
$8 million, it
throwing
could be
balls up
$9
in the air
million.
right now, right?
It could be
So-
$10 million at Pacheco all in. I
Could
mean,
be.
You don't know
There's
what's.
also there's also the opportunity cost of putting it at Pacheco and losing play areas for the children, losing basketball.
You will
court and
lose
a,
recreation down there
Yeah.
at Pacheco.
A lot of kids in that area also.
And then where are we going to put additional recreation opportunities? I mean, Halliwell. But then where I come from, I think, well, if we're going to have to ever put recreational activities down at Halliwell, maybe then should Halliwell be the spot where it should go? And you can put all that down there. You can still improve, Scout is, this, it may not be all at once, but.
Well, as we're talking, I think we have to make a decision at some point. I think it's not a bad decision, but I'm just concerned that it could further delay, but let's do it. I mean, the worst that can happen is that we get an idea of what the costs are going to be, and then we have to make a decision at that point if we can afford to do it, and how we can afford to do it, and how long it will take to do it. So I think what we have to do is, the caveat here is that it could take longer than we think, which is unfortunate because of the money. But the location's fine at Halliwell.
But why would it take longer if we made a decision tonight than if we didn't make a decision?
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. If we made a decision tonight for the location switch, that really doesn't make a difference. What's going to make a difference is the amount of money that we're going to be faced with, right, with a proposal for the costs associated with what we saw this evening. And if that comes back, 4 times more than we have allocated already for it, now we have to start looking at how to fund it.
Well, and where I come from is, I've used this example before, I think. So I look at Smithfield, right, and that little dog park that they built was all private funded. I think the only thing Smithfield put in was a camera and a crosswalk. And so I sit back and I think, we have $4 million and we are limited in how much money we can spend. But if this is truly something that the community wants, there should be other areas to raise money, private investment, maybe a corporate, maybe the Boys and Girls Club wants to write a donation, maybe the YMCA, maybe there's, a business like CVS that wants to write a donation, I mean, I think there's ways to get creative with the financing of it, which I don't want us to be limited, because I think there's still money out there that could help offset some additional costs, whether it's private investment or it's potential grants and other opportunities. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of if I'm.
And Doug, we do have not just the 4, but Mr. Zelinski, we have an additional 8, correct?
$799,500 something dollars, yes, and that's for a community center, so that could be applicable to that. That's an allocation, by the way. All cities and towns are allocated certain amount based on demographics.
Councilors, if I may, working in public libraries, one of the things that we, some of the Friends of the Library groups or Board of Trustees also look at is naming rights. As Mr. Ogier was alluding to, private citizens buying a room, saying that this is going to be the John Smith multi-purpose room, or like we have up at the high school, the gymnasiums are named. So there is opportunity that we can look at as the Halliwell Review Committee as well for naming opportunities. So that's just another avenue that could potentially be explored as well.
Your thoughts, madam?
Excuse me, you were overlooked. Did you want to say something?
No,
No,
he
he
can't.
can't.
No, he can't. Well, it's
No,
terrible
just
because.
in a minute. He will in a minute.
Because he's on the committee.
I'm sorry, I.
Oh, I don't know.
'Cause we have-
Nobody
Yeah,
should
but we're in the
really.
middle of
We
a
have a
motion,
motion,
Yeah,
so.
we have a
I'm
motion.
sorry you were
Yeah.
overlooked.
Why don't you say what you want to say?
I rescind what I said then.
Strike it from the record.
I mean, I think Halliwell is a good location. I just keep going back to the point that I just want to make sure that we continue it to be a multi-generational facility, and we're not going to just call it a senior center, because we need to have a community area. And the reason that it's been going on so long is because there's been, you know, individuals going different ways with different locations, so now this is why we're waiting. Now it's 9 months later and we still haven't decided to move forward yet, because, you know, different things keep coming up. So, I mean, it would be great to get the price. I mean, it was beautiful what they showed, but I'm also just concerned about the whole limitation of areas and stuff, and that's concerning.
Well, and I agree. I think that we have to be very careful not to go out of the parameters of that grant. The way it was originally written, you know, was great. We did a great job, got the $4 million, but we can't jeopardize it. So I think what we need to do is we should probably continue with our vote, make sure we get some feedback from the architects, get a price, and then keep the conversation going as to what the next steps will be once we get that price. We have no idea right now.
Did they say what the turnaround time would be? I know he said where we stood in this process, but do we know, just so?
Sure. Typically, you know, they base it after hearing the feedback this evening. They'll probably take about 2 to 3 weeks to refine the building program. And then based off that, it's been my experience that we typically have 3 to 4 weeks for cost estimating. Usually that first 2 weeks is preliminary, that the architects will review it, provide comment, and then they'll come back to us, see if there's any further comment for what we can, you know, if there's things that we think can be trimmed out or whatnot, and then we could present that to you. So I would say we're looking at, you know, 6 to 8 weeks potentially.
For that timeline, would it make sense to have another joint meeting then? And instead of just cut the step of, I'm just saying, just cut the step of going to Halliwell and then coming back, just do it together?
We could, yeah.
That way we can ask
Yeah.
questions up front, and then you don't have to go back to your group
Oh,
and go
sure.
back and.
No, when we're presenting numbers, I'm making sure that BH+A is certainly here.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so we have a,
We have a motion and a second.
Any further discussion?
I just want to clarify, so Mark, you still can't submit anything until you get those numbers, because you still need the budget, right?
That's correct.
yeah.
So I guess in theory, if the cost was out of control, we could still come back and revisit, but I think right now, yeah, sure. Just want, want to make sure you weren't submitting something tomorrow.
Yeah, I was just emailing the
Oh, you just,
application in.
yeah, you sent it to her.
Oh,
I was
boy.
letting my son know that I wasn't dead. So, there's an architect under contract. You can certainly provide the architect. I hear what the council is saying, and I understand the concerns, and I understand the aspect of the multi-generational. They gave you a concept. That concept was based on input that they received. They're receiving additional input. I'm not saying push this off forever, but they can certainly go back and revisit their concept and follow direction that the council gives them. So if you say you would like phase one to be some aspect of a multi-generational center, whether it be one building or a building with two wings, they can certainly go back and revisit that. It looks like what I can't speak for them, but it looks like what they did is they have modular buildings that they have built previously. That's what this appears to be. And they took certain aspects out of their portfolio, because I've actually been in buildings that look exactly like those. One in Massachusetts, my daughter had a volleyball tournament on it, had a walking track. It looked exactly like that. So it must have been that. So they've got these modular setups, and they're just plugging them in and putting them together based on the input. So if you gave them additional input, and you said, well, we would like A and B, but we want A and B to be next to each other rather than on opposite ends with a big building in the middle, they could come back to you with that. And if you ask them for a general, not a general estimate of the cost, and you gave them the parameters, they would come back to you with what you're asking for. You might not like it, but they'll come back to you. You say, what we would like to do is we'd like to have aspects of that senior center and some aspects of whatever the other portion of it is for the multi-generational joined together, and our budget's $4 million. What can you do? They'll give it to you. Maybe you need to do that just to get an idea on what that looks like. If that's not acceptable, then step back and then go back to the program where you're putting this project together over generations.
That's a good idea.
Just an idea. Not generations, Mark, because my son's not going to be here sitting to do this. I'm getting it done before he gets to college.
Oh, God, you hope.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Nope.
No? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that vote.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda then is to further provide direction for both the Halliwell Review Committee and the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee. I will also preface this with that we do have 2 open seats on our Halliwell Review Committee.
We should probably fill those 2 seats with members from the multi-generational committee. That would be my recommendation, at least to start.
Fine.
But that's not on the agenda.
I'm just putting the bug in your ear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you're going to put that on a future agenda?
We sure can.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So are we on item C?
For the direction of the committees?
So-
Oh, it's for the direction of the committees, is that
Yeah.
what you're asking? Yeah.
Right.
Oh, so the
Yes,
direct.
by resolution,
Yeah.
Halliwell Review Committee has no oversight on this $4 million bond.
Right.
I believe, I haven't read the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee's resolution, but I believe, I'll let Mrs. Tebow speak more to what their resolution states, but we would have to amend resolutions to make sure that the direction that it, based on the decision this evening, is clear for both committees.
Okay.
All right, we'll have to have the solicitor review both of them, and then we
Yep.
can amend them.
That's fine. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because we can only do so much by resolution, and we take that direction very seriously. So if there's a change in our direction, we need to document that accordingly.
Okay.
Oh, Madam President? Well, now that we just voted to put the multi-generational facility at Halliwell, and technically that could be phase one of that big plan, then the direction, am I wrong that the direction should be to now let's focus on that and let's get going on that? Am I wrong or?
Well, right now, we're contracted with BH+A for a master plan. We're not contracted to, and what we saw this evening was the first iteration of a concept. This process takes time. I know people don't want to hear that, but this process takes time. Once you have this conceptual process figured out, which I had previously outlined that we would be wrapping that up in December, we can consolidate some of the things that we are in the steps that BH+A has presented this evening. I'm going to have further conversation with Joel on this, just to give us an appropriate timeline, because we're kind of now refocusing our efforts a little bit. But just to give everybody an appropriate timeline of how this process works is we start with the conceptual design, which we saw the first of tonight, which is, 4 to 5 months. Schematic design, which is the next step in the game, is another 4 to 5 months. Design development, which is further refinement of the design, can be up to 6 months. And then construction documents for a building of this size could probably take between 6 to 8 months. And then bidding is another 2 months. So we have time that this process is going to take. I know you guys are very familiar with the MBRTF process, but I also want to make sure that I'm outlining an appropriate timeline for what this would be for. So that's the months that we're not talking weeks and days. We're talking months and a year and a half to get this, shovels into the ground for this. So I just want to, I'm putting that out there to give a level of expectation of where this will now go, because that's, from my experience, that's the time frame that sort of thing works. Because obviously at the end of schematic design, there's typically a cost estimate that's done to make sure that we're in check with whatever budget numbers we're working with. Same thing in design development. And then if need be, we can also do another cost estimate at about 75% of the construction documents. So then that way that acts as a check that we're staying on budget with whatever that number may be, whether it be the $4 million, whether it be some other number I'm not even going to say, because I don't want anybody to hold me to it, because I don't have my crystal ball of, okay, this is going to cost us so much. So that's typically the process that we would be looking at.
So if we were to do, if we were to do what the planner suggested, staying within the parameters of the 4 million to see what we can get for that, is that adding on to that process extensively, or would that be a simultaneous approach?
We could work the contract to go through a schematic design phase and have that estimated.
Okay.
And then if we decide that it's in line with what the numbers that we like, then we can continue to the next phase. Okay. Or we can go back and revisit it, similar to what the MBRTF is doing with the police station. Mm-hmm. If there's a number that's not looking good for us, we can contract with them to do sometimes we can contract with them to do up to 2 or 3 revisions, as opposed to adding on to the contract. Okay. We can set it up in such a way that's amenable to everybody, that we're not, nickeling, diming BH+A, because that's, again, from my experience, not a good look for towns to be doing. But then make sure that we're providing necessary information for you all to make appropriate decisions.
Jeff, when you say that you wanted, you need the time to get the drawings and you get the pricing and all that stuff, are you talking about just what we talked about tonight, Section A with the gym that Doug talked about, or are you talking about the whole thing?
That's typical of any process.
No, that's what.
So the whole thing. That was what I outlined. That's the whole thing. So let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. The timeline that I outlined would be typical of this size building for space for seniors, and if we were gonna do like Part A, that we've been calling it, that first part. It will still likely take that much amount of time for the whole project all in, when we show, you know, when we showed everything with the pool and classrooms and everything. So those timelines tend to run very similarly, regardless of what option we choose. So am I answering your question enough? Are you?
Unfortunately, yes, because I just see, it seems that if we just focused on, you're the expert, so I'm just asking. It seems if we just focused on Section A and then the gym that Doug recommended, and tell them, don't worry about that other stuff right now, just focus on this, then how can that possibly be just as much time as if we limit their focus on a third of what they gotta do?
Because you're still doing a lot of the building details. We're still writing similar specs, which is a project manual that's required of projects. There's a lot of minutia that goes into these construction documents, especially in a public bid document world, where contractors look at every potential hole. So you want to make sure that you have a tight package for contractors to bid out, so that in that way you're not hit with change orders because there's holes in documentation. There's also, you know, one of the things that I've always worked with is I've had architects on other building committees that review our full drawing sets, and they go through and mark up what they see as mistakes or what they see as potential holes or liability for the municipality that they're serving. So I would suspect that my group would do something similar as well. So,
you know, I got my police thinking going on right now. I feel like there's something else going on. Is there money coming in somewhere, or potential money that I don't know about? Because why would we be? It just seems like why would we be looking at this massive building with a pool when we just agreed that we're going to just focus on that?
Well, because we're focused on master planning right now.
But is there money or something coming? Is there potential for money or something coming up? Because it just seems like we're so willing to spend this kind of money looking at this massive building.
Well, looking at this massive building, with this master plan, we want to know how much it's going to cost all in. This is what the community has said that they wanted. So we need to provide them with a cost of how much what they wanted is going to cost us in the end, you know?
My daughter wants a Porsche. We're not looking at Porsches, you know?
Well, but that's where the master planning comes in. That's where your feedback this evening comes in. If you think there's too much, you should have said something while they were here.
I did. You came after me.
Yep, I did a little bit. But I mean, if there's things that you think are superfluous in this plan, let us know. You folks are the final decision makers. We're going by guidance in our recommendations right now. So if there's something that you think is going to be a big money maker, say, hey, we understand you've heard that there's a pool that's being put into this building. We don't want the pool. Get rid of it. And then that's the direction that we take to BH+A, and they take it out. So this initial go-round with the 3 cost estimates during our master planning is, as I said it previously, is our bare bones, what we need, the middle of the line, some of what we need and some of what we want, and then the top of the line. BH+A is going to be providing that to us. And then we present that to the 5 of you, and you make your decision. If you think that, you know, one is going to be, you know, the top of the line is, oh, that's only so much over the course of 15 years, that's doable. Then we move forward with that. We solidify it. We put it in the comp plan. We put it as an action item, as goals to get it done. But then if the council decides that, oh, you know what? These extra classrooms, we don't need them right now. We're going to cut that from the building. We have planned for it. We know how much it's going to be, but we're not going to do those until we absolutely need them. So that's where the costs come in. You know, it's right now we are only this evening we just got notified that we're getting $4 million. So I can't tell you how much this is going to cost because we haven't gone through the full process yet.
So Jeff, can I ask a question to piggyback off what Councilman Biergard was saying? So I hear what you're saying about the master plan, and I totally agree with the master plan concept and knowing what the long-term vision can be down there. But if we want to build a variation of A and B with the gym, and we know that that's something we may want to do more in the immediate future, why can't those two processes run in concert with each other?
They can.
Why? So
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry if I gave you the impression that
I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
No,
what you're
I'm
saying.
sorry if I gave you the impression that.
I thought we had to wait till we got everything and then we
No, we don't have, what we have to wait for is some renegotiations of a contract. And that's a conversation that I need to have with Joel. Because now, if this is the direction that we want to start schematic design on this right now. Everything's perfect.
I got you.
There's nothing that we want to carve out of it. We want to go forward right now with this. Let me talk to them, and we got to renegotiate.
They're
the
essentially
contract.
not authorized to go forward with this. They would need us to say, we're going to say, go forward with that, and also go forward with the master plan.
Yep.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. Oh, and I'm going to make a motion to extend the meeting by 30 minutes.
What'd you say?
We have to extend the meeting.
Second.
We need a clock somewhere in here.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
So are we all clear? Because I was confused,
Yes.
and I was just going to say, I understand why Mr. Biergard is confused too. So if we're saying right now, I think two things, and it's only, I'm speaking for myself, you can speak for yourselves. I'd like to see a $4 million thing, and I would like to see the one that's presented to us in it, the way it was presented this evening, right? So renegotiating the contract to accommodate those two requests, is that something that you can do for us?
I can certainly ask the question.
Thank you.
And ask for those proposals to be
Thank you.
provided for the council.
If that's the council's pleasure.
But you're saying renegotiate the contract to do the two, but if we tell them, just do the one. Don't worry about the pool, don't worry about that whole side. Worry about section A and the add-on
Right,
of the
and
gym.
that's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Right, just that,
Right.
right. But what Jeff is saying.
That's fine. We can do that.
Yeah,
We can do that. There is no further plan for the rest of the property.
right.
No.
And that's what we also need to get done.
That's
I would
correct.
agree with you.
That's
That's why I think, that's why I was saying, can the two run in parallel with each other?
I
I think
don't
you
see
still
why
need
not.
to develop the master plan, but I think we can still
We
focus
need-
on something.
We need to develop, if this is the plan that's, the council would like to move forward with, this needs further refinement and development. That's gonna take some time. If there's a $4 million option that we need to work backwards to, that's another contract amendment.
Right.
So, we can do that. It's just asking the question of BH+A timeline and contract, because that's basically amending their contract.
Okay. So you'll be able to get that information to us within the next couple of weeks, or?
Couple of weeks.
I will do my best to get that to
Meeting
you
until the 19th.
expeditiously.
Okay. Thank you.
Josh, did you want to, I'm sorry, Josh, did you want to say?
So,
You got it. You have to-
all right, sorry.
Sorry.
I don't mind the walking.
We need like a mic in the middle here where people can just walk up and talk to the mic.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we seem to be bouncing all over the place here, but I think what Jeff's, we're not, I don't think Jeff's point is we're gonna completely design and commit to this entire building. So what he has is he's gonna get budget pricing as of right now. He's already directed them to give us some kind of budget pricing for the whole thing. So we ask for the world, and then we whittle down to where we can get to within our budget. So you're committing to section A, or section A and B, or section A and C, at this point is not where we are. We gotta get the budget to where we are at that point, so that we know what we're looking at. Oh, well, maybe section A is only 2 million, and we can add section B and possibly section C, which is just a rectangle with a couple of walls. So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves with final designs and where we're going. We're at the conceptual level, and we're gonna get some budget pricing. Am I correct with that? Thank you. That's all I got.
Yeah, time to go home. That's right. Okay. So is that direction enough for you on that? Was that for our
If we could
discussion?
make that a formal motion, so then I can go from there, I would appreciate that.
So is the motion to engage BH+A to do a contract amendment? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to authorize the Halliwell Review Committee to engage BH+A to provide a revised contract to reflect the amendments that we've discussed tonight. I mean,
I'll second that.
You got it. Don't worry.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No offense, I'm only gonna vote no because I'm not 100% sure what we're voting on, and I don't wanna vote yes on something that I'm not sure of.
So, do we need a motion?
Are we directing us to do something?
All right.
Yeah, you're giving us further direction.
So then I
that's
should probably make
outside-
my motion clearer. So I'll make a motion to authorize the Halliwell Review Committee to engage BH+A to revise, to update and amend their contract to not only reflect a master plan design for the Halliwell site, but also a conceptual design specification. I don't know what the legal
If you
terminology
will.
is. It's not what I do.
I would recommend that you allow us to engage BH+A for a contract amendment on a schematic design and estimate of what's been presented as the community use plan this evening to move forward with that. Only schematic design only, it's not committing us all the way through, so then at least you have numbers.
Thank you for cleaning up the language in architectural terms. I appreciate it.
I tried.
So moved.
Say it again, please.
No, I get it. You don't have to say that.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say so moved.
What I said.
Yeah, I'll need it.
I made it, but I'm just piggyback off
I
what Jeff said.
second.
All right, so we have a
I'll
motion
second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we have your item, so.
Yeah, we have
All
one more
set,
item.
Jeff?
Yep,
All set.
yep.
You sure now?
He'll come back in 2 weeks.
You'll see me.
All right, next item is discussion by council vote or other action on relocating playground equipment from Halliwell to another location in town, Mr. Ogier.
So a resident had reached out to me in town, and had made me aware of the playground equipment that's down in Halliwell, and had said that it's in good condition. I drove by there. It looks like it's in good condition.
It is.
The grass is a little overgrown. It's, you know,
Yeah, but
it's a little hard to find. And so I think it's being wasted down there, and so I don't think we're gonna solve this tonight, but maybe we should continue it to the next meeting, but I would like to see us potentially move it to another area in town, and
is
maybe
that-
the DPW tractor's still here.
Is that the one on St. Paul Street? you wanna
Mr.
move?
Ogier, I brought this up like 4 years ago to move this. to move
Yeah.
this,
I figured
Is
it's
that
probably
the
not a
thing
new
for-
topic, so.
This playground, and I think there's just a location that can't be
Located.
Determined.
located.
How
but
about St.
this-
Paul?
So fortunately, we've had 4 years to think about this. And one of the proposed sites that I'm thinking about is, since we've done over the back area here with the gazebo and so forth, which you also have to understand, that's half of a playground.
Yes, I know.
That's a half.
I know.
It's better than nothing.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's age appropriate also. So that was at Halliwell for 4th and 5th graders. So I can't put that with little kids in a playground. So when you do a playground, it's age appropriate for all ages or
Right.
a certain age group. So I just can't throw that somewhere because it's half of a playground. The other half is behind the police station. That's what people don't understand.
Also, we moved half of it, and we left the other half. Is that what we did?
Yes, because it's a tyke park for little children on tricycles that can't reach the bars for 4th and 5th graders.
Okay.
That's why the age appropriateness comes in on that playground. So it's not an easy fix, and some people suggested Milton and Arnold, which is a swamp, which I've said we're never gonna put a playground there again, because my guys can't cut the grass until August. So, I'm thinking about back here, because with the concerts and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think
there's-
that
the
makes
school
sense.
department wants nothing to do with it, which tells you a whole lot about that. So, I moved past them.
A lot of broken arms.
So, if you guys are all set, and as the Madam President said, I think it's been coming up 4 years now, so.
Yeah, I figured this wasn't a new topic.
Well,
So-
it's just finding a location, you know, just to put it, it's definitely gonna be moved because of the demolition of Halliwell. We had that already on the books.
So maybe we should just, do you want to assess here again, or and then maybe in a couple weeks we can revisit it? And
Unless somebody, the person I think that reached out to you, reached out to me several
Yeah.
times. So I spoke with him, I asked him, do you have a location? You know, if you have a problem, can you come up with a solution?
Yeah.
People have a hard time with that word. So I have no problem putting it here. I was gonna speak to the administrator on this. If we think that this is a good location, fine. If somebody else has a better location, could put it in John's backyard, you know, could put it anywhere.
I'm getting rid of one.
I know.
Oh,
So
good, we'll
this
take
is the
it.
part.
so maybe we'll just,
We got a little time.
Okay.
But I'd like to get it moved before the winter.
so maybe we'll put, yeah, 4 more years, no.
No, no.
Maybe we'll put it on the next agenda and you could give us an update.
It did kind of fall off my calendar a little bit.
That's okay. We'll put it on the next agenda.
So, Director, do you mind, Director, you want to also mention that there's cost associated with it, there's special padding underneath.
Yeah, that's what I
that
figured.
we didn't have when we were kids, so there's, that's why we are the way we are.
There
But
was, there
Well-
was no special padding underneath those.
not back in.
Well,
They were
no.
wood chips. Trust me.
Administrator makes a good point. Since 2006 or 8, I think when that went in, that went in 8, 7,
Yeah.
8, because my daughter was at
Yeah.
Halliwell at the time. Regulations on playgrounds have changed dramatically. So now, I had crews dismantle the other one and put it at the Take Park. I'm not sure if I can do that anymore, because the liability of putting that structure somewhere else may fall under a different, I'm not sure I can do it. So I may have to pay somebody to do this now.
Right, well, that's also why I figured we should, if we have to authorize money or something to do it, but, so maybe, yeah,
If you want to put it like for a couple meetings on the road, I can do some little research with the trust, because I think we may fall not under the safety mulch, we may fall under that rubber paddings now.
so maybe we could just add it to the updates that we do even.
Okay.
That way, even if we don't have an update, we
That you
just,
hold on to, and they spin around real fast.
Yeah, so that's the one that's the one that's real fun.
That's a good idea, though. I like that we're doing something positive and we're actually doing something.
Yep. Oh, yeah, we're not going to leave it down
yeah,
there.
we don't want it to get
No,
demolished.
it's actually still in good shape.
It looks like it's in really good shape, so that's why I was like,
Okay.
All right, everybody to the playground.
All right, thank you.
that's it?
All right, make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Everyone in favor, say aye.
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 Aye.